Hello! I was wondering if I might trouble you for a cup of strong black coffee, and in the process engage you with an anecdote of no small amusement.
Hello and welcome to another episode here
There's
at
a wind up
Nerdherder.
on that
There
one.
was. Oh, I'm into it. I'm trying to be into it. The caffeine is helping.
I'm into it enough for both of us.
Yes, you are.
Which is the case for never mind.
Oh, it's a bye joke. Yes, welcome to another episode of Nerdherder here, where we talk about this, at least this episode, our first love of the mighty Star Wars. And we have spoilers in the chat of our lovely guests for this Star Wars chat.
I didn't know we had the Grey Jedi on here.
There's no such thing as Grey Jedi, but I'm sure that'll be a conversation for later.
Who's your favorite Grey Jedi, guys? Put it in the chat.
Oh, you're gonna give me an aneurysm.
As if that wasn't my plan this entire
This whole
time.
episode may, and you know what? If it's the way I go out, I am cool with it.
I'm psyched, man.
I mistakenly scheduled guests for this episode where I am the most tired I've been in months. And I will not be surprised if a vote of no confidence happens on my behalf during this, and I'm just out. And
Okay.
and the Grand Emperor Boop takes over.
As if that was not. You think I'm not already in charge?
But I'm just curious, which of our two guests is your acolyte? That's what I'm very curious about. Oh my gosh, the chat is popping off. Welcome.
What's up, babies?
As always, I know I've been looking forward to this. As I've mentioned, I'm tired. I've been off the grid,
yes.
literally and figuratively, but not so off the grid that I missed Kenobi spoilers.
Hey, that did happen, didn't it?
Oh
Y'all
my
need
gosh.
to calm the heck down immediately, like midnight.
I don't get it. I try so hard to avoid the spoilers, but all I can say, we've seen it now. But all I can say, we picked no
Literally
better
15 minutes ago.
week to talk about Sith and our favorite Sith than the week that this episode, part 5 of Kenobi, premiered, because boy howdy was it on the dark side. No spoilers, but Darth Vader was in it. And it was, oh my gosh. It gets better every episode. I am loving it. I have been completely converted. We've talked about this when we did the Jedi episode. I was a naysayer. We don't need it. It's unnecessary. What's he going to do? Sit around the desert? He has surely done so much more than that, although I'm excited for the big finale. But yeah, I'm loving Kenobi. I'm loving it. And so,
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
but as much as I love Kenobi and as much as we love Jedi, which again, we did an episode about,
Go back and watch that.
also with lovely guests, you can go back and check that out. But you know, the powerful light, powerful dark. You can't have one without the other. There must be balance. And therefore, we reached out to the darkest depths of the podcast Twitterverse to find guests for this week's episode to talk about our favorite Sith, because I don't think it's ever been unknown that we Star Wars nerds like the dark side. They're just cooler. Capes, jetpacks, helmets,
no legs,
red, black.
Who needs legs?
Right. A surprisingly
Legs are for
sparse
chumps.
amount of legs.
Or more than you would think.
Or more than you would think. Right. Just definitely an unnatural amount of legs. But yeah, so you know, we do like our baddies around here, and so we have no qualms sitting here talking about. Now, Nerdherders does not condone the acts of Sith. All right, especially if you've seen this most recent Kenobi episode, we do not condone the acts of these Sith.
I personally support both women's rights and wrongs. So,
yeah, what's the meme where it's just like, you know, like you can do no wrong. Like I know it. I know
this and I love it.
Yes.
Money, please.
Right. We accept all these Sith sins and all, but nonetheless, we scoured for the best guests for this one. We love all of our guests.
We've included some baddies ourselves.
But we of course have a special place in our heart for these two titans of podcasting.
Special place in our heart and a special place in hell.
They lowered their standards to be with us, and we're so glad for it. So first off, new to the show, both are new to the show. But first, the lovely and amazing and well lit Jarod, the Dark Jedi.
Long have I waited.
Hi,
You guys-
I am so excited to finally be on Nerdherder. You guys, I need to shout you guys out real quick
Oh no!
and just say, y'all moved when you do your streams for me to be on.
We did.
So y'all, I am very thankful. I'm very appreciative, and we were trying to make me be able to come on for the Batman stuff. Didn't pan out because I'm normally stuck around a bunch of racist old people
Same.
serving drinks Friday nights. But tonight I am here, and I am very excited and honored.
Oh man!
Not to be with the guest, but to be with you guys.
Listen,
I don't know what came over me. The dark side was clearly at work for this episode when that scheduling happened.
as soon as you told me, I was like, "Are you sure?"
Oh man!
You're about to see the rule of two in action.
Right, Jarod, you were a joy.
You're a sweet boy.
Yes, you and your guest of unknown origin over there. We love you guys and what you do, and it was an easy choice to move around the schedule for you. If it meant having the Dark Jedi with us, we would have done about anything. So glad to finally make this happen, man.
Thank you very much. I pride myself on being Star Wars Twitter's Vegeta.
That's perfect.
That earned you so many points with me, dude.
I'm known for being defeated, and I am arch rivals, but best buddies with everyone's favorite character. So
It's true.
That's
And
true.
Listen. He only gets one. He only gets one trivia joke, so he better use it wisely.
Right. Everybody gets
I can
one
only
of
drop
something.
one F-bomb, and he can only make one Elfrona joke. I think that's
Exactly.
fair.
Get more jokes. Jarod.
That's the
We
deal.
all
That's
get one arm tied behind our backs here.
Well, as you mentioned, and quite an analogy for yourself. You are the Vegeta of this weird family, and that Vegeta cannot exist without his Goku. And so, also new to the
Don't
show,
Call him Goku. He's Nappa at
he's
best.
just got funny hair. The lovely and amazing
Kakarot!
Scotty.
Sorry.
They call me God where I come from. That's Twitter.
The
I'm
wildest
worshipped.
part of Bombadcast joining us tonight. Oh,
I
goodness.
will actually take that because Jerry thinks he's edgelord, but I'm actually God.
What?
So that really does speak volumes to
Listen.
what the casual Bombadcast fans and in-depth ones have to say. Because like you got to think about it, right? If Jerry is the less unhinged one, I've already won there, and I also beat Jarod in trivia because he sucks ass.
And that's it.
That was my
And
one.
there's
It's
the
done.
one.
I
There's
did
the
it.
one.
I
Wow,
did it.
you really didn't wait to use that.
No,
You couldn't.
because part of it's putting you in your place for the rest of the stream. Because you got to think, right? If you are Darth Plagueis, I came in and killed you as Palpatine, and that was it. So just think about the Sith stuff while we're doing this. And I gotta say, I'm
Or
honored
maybe
to be
I'm
here.
Darth Bane and you're Darth Zana, and we don't really know if I actually died.
There's a lot of names. being
I
thrown
think
around.
what he's saying is a little piece of him will always live with you, Scotty.
That's
There-
fair,
there's a-
and I get it.
Deep inside.
It's because
There's
I'm
a deep
God,
joke
and
for
I'm a little
anybody.
bit of me is in all of you. A little bit of you is all of me, and that's just the Bible. It's the
I thought I had
Bombad
a
Bible.
question.
I don't know about that, but okay.
Look, I am happy to be here, even though I'm with my opponent. We will drop the act for this. I do love Jarod deeply, but I love you two more. Jarod's just
Aw.
kind of like Jarod's that wart that keeps growing back, and y'all two are the zits that popped and are on the mirror. So I'm
There
just
you go.
happy that's the best analogy y'all could get.
I'll take it. I will take
What are you?
it.
He's Scotty.
Oh my!
I will
God.
say, before,
Ugh.
and I will try not to keep hijacking here. Congratulations on 3 years of Bombadcast.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thanks, that's today.
absolutely.
Today,
Absolutely.
3 years. I'm honored to be here. Jerry hasn't even texted me today, so it shows how much he gives a shit.
Leave Jer Bear alone.
He
Leave him
texted me, I'm
alone.
just saying.
Oh, there's a
I do-
hierarchy.
I am thankful that we've had that opportunity to do this for 3 years. And, as most shows go on, you realize it gets more and more difficult to talk about certain stuff. And this Sith discussion is one of those ones that honestly, to me personally, feels like it can keep going on forever because there's a conversation and there's a topic that will never end. And I think we'll even get better as certain shows come out. But that being said, I'm excited to talk about tonight. I really am. I'm excited to show you my top 3.
Yeah. Oh, well, and excited to have you. But yeah.
He's gonna pretend he did that on purpose.
Totally.
He didn't.
But yeah, 3 years of podcasting is no joke.
No,
I got you guys by like a year.
2018. Yeah, August 2018.
That's right.
Who's the alpha
yeah,
now?
this will be 4.
Who's the alpha? I don't know.
I can guarantee we are no more professional now than when we started.
Absolutely not.
We've just got better friends. And for that,
Hey, don't let this set fool you. I run a tight ship of dick joke journalism. Let me.
You went to college for that, huh?
Yeah.
At least you went to college.
Oh, Connor said the line. No, I didn't.
Yes, he did. Connor did say
said
the
the
line.
line.
There's no
He
possible
said the
way.
thing.
There's no possible way.
He'll keep his eye on us.
Hello,
show.
third sister.
So yes. So if anyone in the chat has tuned in previously, first of all, thank you. If you haven't, shame on you.
If you have, sorry.
Right. So all we can do is apologize. Go listen to Nerd Academy or Bombadcast. They're much better. But if you listen to our Nerd Academy, if you listen to it's the Chuck E. Cheese for that one. If you listen to our most recent Star Wars focused episode where we talked about favorite Jedi, you'll know how this works. We all picked our top 3, and we're going to talk about it. It's that simple, folks. Again, we're not professionals. We just like hanging out with our friends. And so,
what good is a friendship if you can't monetize it?
We of course do have to make this the most confusing thing possible. So as we go through, if somebody's number 3 is my number 1, or if someone's number 2 is your number 3, we'll just have
we get to
fun
kiss.
with it.
Oh,
right.
Exactly.
Damn it! I thought we all gonna go.
Kisses all
It's a
around.
little hard to get to my camera. There's like 3 tables between it, but I'll make it work.
It's gonna be an effort. But kisses in the chat whenever we line
Kiss in
up
the chat.
our Sith Venn diagrams.
That's our new thing. Kisses in the chat.
Can we have a 4th, by the way? Just not like a true 4th, but like an honorable mention at some point, because I have one really interesting one.
Absolutely.
Okay, close, make it sure.
Before we even get into that, I'm curious because last time when we were talking Jedi, I was very surprised, but also I guess not, but how much of a trend there was with each of the guests, and even myself. Although people are mentioning jokingly gray Jedis in the chat.
Scotty, explain to him why they're mentioning the Gray Jedi. So he gets explain to him why. Because this this sweet good person does not realize that 90% of the people in this chat right now are just trolling me right now.
So here's the thing. People think I'm a gaslighter. I'm not. I really am not. I'm really a humble person. I don't know what that. I had to look up what gaslight means, and it showed a picture of a lamp in New Orleans. I'm like, well, I've seen that.
Oh,
I'm not. So that being said, I don't know what that word means, and they keep using this phrase. And all I said by accident, I called Jarod instead of a dark Jedi, I called him a gray Jedi. Okay, and everyone got upset. Mm-hmm. He even vocally said it like, "I'm you mistaken. There is no such thing." And the problem with Jarod is, once I know, unfortunately, what gets under this loser's skin, I will be able to actually just use it for the rest of his life. And that being said, look, I'll be honest with y'all. I don't know what gaslighting is. I still don't.
I'm gonna come pick up Katie. She doesn't deserve to live with this.
I don't know what that means. Gaslighting, it's the stupidest phrase in the world. Hey, Google, what does gaslighting mean?
You bitch.
Here's the definition of gaslight. Manipulate someone by psychological means into questioning their own.
I don't know if y'all hear it, but it's saying a light that you find in a gas chamber.
Oh, you're a mastermind of a man.
I'm a god, but okay.
GAWD. But okay. For the not in on the jokeness, great. most of my list was made up with what people would call gray Jedi. I think.
Before Freddie Prinze Jr.
Um,
shut down entirely.
Well,
I forgot
the-
about that.
yeah. The Jedi that don't really fit the super hyper religious. They're not Kenobi, right? Up until
Yeah.
like they just don't fit that mold exactly, and they are just a little bit more human than every other Jedi, and that's what I was attracted to. So I'm curious if before getting into our lists, if there was any trends spotted. Did you happen to pick very similar archetypes? Was it kind of all over the place?
For me, all of slight spoilers, all of mine are Fallen Jedi.
Okay.
Wow. Mine, that's a good one. One of mine's a Fallen Jedi. But mine's, unfortunately, and this is just kind of how I am as a person, it's a direct lineage in terms of who helped who or taught who. So mine's
Okay.
truly like it ascends, and it's pretty good. So
Interesting.
we'll talk about that when we get
Sins
to
of the family kind of guy. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, before we dive in, want to remind folks that we do have new merch out.
Yes, we
You
do.
can check the link in the description, whether you're watching this
Merch.
live, which you should be. We're live normally every Friday. Today, for our special guest, Jarod, we're live on Saturday. But nonetheless, you can tune in live or you can listen after the fact. Either way, in the description, you'll find a link to our TeePublic store where we have Nerdherder Pride merch. You can check this out, support your third favorite podcast, and also send proceeds over to Amidala Initiative at Amidala. Oh my gosh!
At Amidala helps. I can
Wah,
read.
bah,
On
wah,
Twitter.
wah, bamboo. Anyway,
Right, I turned into Boomhauer there for a second. Guys, it has been a week. Yes,
Jangle Amidala helps. Yes.
at Amidala helps. Check them out because apparently I can't do them justice in explaining all the good that they do. But 77 other awesome creators are over there supporting their work, and you should be too. And you can do that while supporting us as well. Oh, Kev, you're my hype man.
Good
And
save.
Oh, he makes me feel good about myself. And if you hear
He's
a
a
lot,
sweet boy.
to preface, if you hear a large boom, listeners and viewers and guests, we are fine. For some reason, people with fathers who want to celebrate this up and coming holiday are shooting fireworks.
Dad's.
I already
What?
don't get it because I don't have a dad, and I also don't get it because fireworks.
I told you, Nick Milky, the Milky Daddy.
Yes, Milk
is your
Daddy
father.
is the daddy.
That's what he's doing.
Uh,
That's what he's doing. He's
It turns out it's just Nick out back. He came all the way from Alabama.
if you hear big booms, the shooting has started. Welcome to say it could happen here.
It's
Anyway,
it's
sorry.
probably going to be for some of our opinions when we get into these lists, so we might as well
That's
do it.
true.
Opinions are perfect. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, Scotty. All right. So
We're the same genre. Don't even.
yes,
I'm God.
yeah, yes.
mm,
If he is God, you are Jesus.
I'm the devil.
Uh,
Oh, I like that. I'm a fan of that.
let's start this religious. Y'all in the chat start coming up with a theology for this. So with that,
Scotty Jarod, fan of the devil.
Jarod,
Yes.
course correct this train. Why don't we start with your number 3?
My number 3, if we're gonna go with what Scotty was saying as well, like that honorable mention one, just throwing it in there real quick, especially keeping with mine. I'm gonna shout out my boy Darth Tyrannus, Count Dooku for that number 4 spot. But
That's my number 3.
my
So
number
that's
3,
that's my number 3.
my actual number 3 is Exar Kun.
Nice.
He is, and I'm so happy for Boop because Boop is not a Legends person for the most
No,
part.
I am not.
So, and that's why we call it
okay.
the Nerd Academy, because I'm about to teach you.
we
Exar
go.
Kun is what you could largely call the blueprint for the modern Sith. Before Exar Kun, his predecessors, Naga Sadao, Freedon Nad, all of those cats, they were more like dark sorcerers more than they were like warriors of the dark side. And Exar Kun was the transition from dark sorcerer to dark warrior. And obviously you have Darth Bane that kind of takes it from warrior into a like the actual kind of like swirl of the two. But Exar Kun's fascinating. He's a fallen Jedi, and he absolutely fits the archetype of the petulant, arrogant, prodigal student who flew too close to the sun. Incredibly fascinating character. He turned one of the other prodigies of the Order, Ulic Qel-Droma, to the dark side and pulled him down into the mud with him. And one of the other really fascinating things about Exar Kun is that he doesn't actually die.
Right.
He
In a rare occurrence.
Yeah, he gets pinned down when he realizes the Jedi are coming for him, and especially after knowing that Ulic Qel-Droma surrendered and allowed himself to have his connection to the Force severed by the Jedi as a punishment for turning to the dark side with Exar. Exar Kun basically because all of this his final stand happens on Yavin 4 in Legends, so he channels his own Force energy to basically haunt the Massassi Temple that the Rebellion uses as a base during the Battle of Yavin. And years later, whenever Luke's Jedi Order's kicking around in there, Exar Kun comes back from the dead and starts haunting students and shit. So he's also the greatest lightsaber duelist of his time. He never straight up lost a one-on-one duel. So he's everything I love in a Star Wars character, especially a Darksider. They're an incredible warrior. They're a brilliant tactician. There's a really pronounced arrogance to them that I just love in those kinds of villains, where they're like, yeah, I know I'm the best. You don't have to tell me. I know who I am. And he killed Jedi Battlemaster Vodosias Boss, which he's a bad.
That was a real name.
Yes.
That was a real name. No, say that again.
I thought he was speaking in tongues.
Vodosias Boss. He's a red elephant man.
Hang on.
Me too.
Wikipedia.
Legends is wild, guys. Here's the thing. There's a lot of legends we can definitely omit, but there's also a lot of legends we should never forget.
And
I
Exar
agree.
is one
Forget
of
it.
them.
The use on Bong, or you will repeat it.
Right.
He also technically invented the saber staff. He wasn't the first person to ever use one, but he was the person who perfected the design. And his, on top of that, was unique to most others. Because when you think saber staff, you think something like Maul's, right?
Right.
Which is about the length, slightly more of two lightsabers put together. His saber staff was the hilt was the length of a standard lightsaber.
Oh, and then it was longer. Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
he would be able to ignite one side at any given time, and because of the way that he loved shock and awe tactics, he loved the fact that he was it's kind of like if Darth Vader had a Grand Inquisitor or an Inquisitor lightsaber. Vader doesn't need a gimmick weapon,
Right.
Exar Kun. Exar Kun was the best martial artist of his era. He didn't need some goofy lightsaber, but he chose to have one so that he could, be in a lightsaber duel and boom, second blade. And he had he could control. He had controls that dictated the length, the width, the how hot the blade would go.
Oh, cool.
He was meticulous and so far up his own ass. He's an incredible villain. And one that I think the canon deserves to have returned.
Absolutely. If I've learned anything about Star Wars, everything will be explained, much like this incredible Curie. Because surely there's no such thing as mistakes. That Jeans guy in Mandalorian was the best character, and they just omitted him.
That's
Cancel
Master G.
culture.
They did. That was messed up.
Cancel culture strikes again.
He was fired.
Jarod, I want to ask you one thing.
What?
Did the fascination with this character come from when you were younger, or was it something that you kind of fell in love with when you were older? I mean it, because as a kid, I would scroll through. I would scroll through Pokemon like their own. It was a Wookiee. No, it's Bulbapedia. I would scroll through Bulbapedia when I was 16, just learning about Pokemon. Whereas I never did Wikipedia probably until I was in college. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because that's something I feel like you would have took in as a kid and let me just digest all of this.
So Exar Kun, Ulic Qel-Droma, all of those characters, Nomi Sunrider, which is one of the cool Star Wars names of all time. all of those are from the Tales of the Jedi comics, which were before my time. And I brought this up on Bombadcast not too long ago. When I was a kid, I was gifted this book. It was called, it was like the Star Wars Ultimate Encyclopedia or whatever. And it was basically just a Star Wars history book that went through Star Wars in chronological order. It came out in like 2007. So it went all the way to like the Tales of the Jedi stuff at the beginning and went all the way to the New Jedi Order stuff. And I read it more times than I can count when I was like 6. Or however old I was when I got it. So yeah, I first learned about Exar Kun and all of that stuff in that book. When I was about 13, I got the omnibus that has all of the Tales of the Jedi comics in it. And I read that eventually, the giant omnibus that like I could use as a bulletproof plate. You know, like that's how thick the book is. You stop a bullet. But yeah, no, eventually I didn't read it, but it started out as, you know, like reading like a history book.
See, part of it for me, and when we get to all of our choices, a lot of it does come down to what I thought was particularly interesting when I was younger too. And I don't know if it's because as an adult, you can almost, you know, over nitpick this kind of stuff, but like this is Jarod, your passion for that, even that, you know, your third choice is commendable. And I mean that because, you know, some people don't really give it that much thought, but I can see that something you held on to something from when you were younger and really liked it. So
he's so cool. He's so cool. And like Google a picture of him. Like he's got like this giant ponytail and shit. He's so it's awesome. Like it is a healthy amount of edge. Oh, there's iJedi, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
a surprisingly interesting book, despite what we were originally told. But no, you bring up an interesting point, Scotty, because like I will say, characters like Exar Kun and actually some from my list, my original fascination began with like with you, Jarod, either book deep dives or Wikipedia deep dives, where like I'm not going to play this game. I'm not going to.
My number 2 is a Wikipedia
books.
one for me when I was a kid, before I could read stuff.
Yeah,
I
so
still can't read.
I should clarify that before I had access to comics at large. But
well, right. So very, very recently, in the past 5 years or so, I've been intentionally going back to these things that, like, you know, that's why I was so hyped about KOTOR coming to Switch. Like, everything I've experienced of those games is through Wikipedia, right?
Yeah.
Like, because it's just, I was never going to get that game or play that game. So, like,
You have it on PC.
the way I fell in love with the characters was online, was through research. So, it's actually a very interesting point. But yes, now as an adult, I'm doing the very millennial thing.
You just refuse to play it on the computer.
I don't like PC gaming, and I don't want to apologize for that. Yeah, I like. Thank you from the official gaming boy himself. I'm validated.
You really want to be validated by Scotty?
But
no, you don't.
As we've mentioned,
go buy some of Scotty's bathwater now, since he's such a gamer.
Simp.
Over on his OnlyFans. So, but with Exar Kun, we've mentioned a few places you can find more about him, and I joke, but it's some of the better Legends storytelling for sure. A lot of how we look at some of these characters, and again, because I have a couple of Legends characters as well, they came after we had the very atypical of like, oh, dad went bad, now he's serving the other guy, son's got to save him. Like, not every Sith is that way, and they're interesting when I think they're more interesting when they're not that way. Like, that's Vader's journey, that needs to be his journey. There's all kinds of other complex and interesting Sith out there, and definitely Exar Kun, if you're talking Legends, is one of the Titans, one of the few most people I think know of.
Yeah, and I poke fun at Legends, but in reality, I got one of my favorite characters because of Legends. Like, there is nothing wrong with those stories. IG-88 will always be a GOAT.
Yeah.
And it's because of that Tales from the Bounty Hunter story that I read. And that, honestly, that's one of the things that got me into Star Wars. So I can't, poo-poo on Legends too much.
There's just so much of it.
Yeah.
There's so much of it. And now there's so much canon where it's just like...
Sorry.
No, it's just it's this nerd thing of just like, oh, you've got to go and digest all of this stuff, and
Absolutely
it's just
not. I refuse.
yeah, we're choking people on Star Wars,
I
and
could
I
just listen to
and
Jarod.
exactly.
That's true.
Just
That's true.
call him when you need to go night night. He'll soothe you with
might.
ridiculous.
He will.
Star Wars.
He
facts.
actually will.
I'll
Not kidding.
FaceTime him so I can get a kiss from Taylor. Good night.
We're gonna get his number and put it up on the chat here later.
Do it.
7.
1-800
I'll
step
do it.
away from the cookie jar. That is 1-800.
Put the cookie down.
Listen, sir. This is my
Uh,
podcast. You will not bring that eldritch horror into
Oh.
If he
here.
moved his
Who
head,
do you
it'd be
think
right
is
there.
sitting on the throne of Exegol?
I will
Calm
Calm
you.
down, Kevin. All right.
But I
So
will say real
segue.
quick before we move on with the XR thing, and you
If
brought up
you
a great
must.
point, JD. Yeah, I'm gonna be speed round it. What you were saying with like not every Sith is like Vader, and you know the theme of fallen Jedi that runs through my list. The thing that I love about it is all three of them come from very different places of fallen Jedi, and Exar Kun is one of the few who like actively went, you know what? I want to be a Sith Lord. There was no obviously all of them made that choice, but there was no coercion. There was no deep-seated trauma that led to that. It was that arrogance and that need to be superior that set Exar down that road. And it is the level of autonomy he has with his choice to embrace the dark side, which is what makes him so fascinating to me.
Absolutely.
But,
Absolutely. And so, as mentioned, your honorable mention was Scotty's number 3. So it's kind of out there, but Darth Tyrannus, Scotty, that's an interesting one.
See, I'll give my honorable mention too as well, just to make sure I get it
Please.
stated. This may be the only one. I may be the only person that says it on this list. I'm willing to be wrong, but one of my favorite characters growing up and one of my favorite games I ever played was Star Wars Bounty Hunter, which was about Jango Fett. But not how Jango Fett kind of came to power. It was how Jango Fett earned the ability to be the clone template, right?
Yes.
And I don't know if this is Jared's list, but Kamari Vosa, one of my all-time favorites. And get this, she's been canonized. She's been canonized, which is crazy because she is the reason Asajj Ventress has those, what's it called? I guess they're bent. Whatever you describe Dooku's
sabers.
Curved saber, right? So Kamari Vosa, remember, and look, let's be real. I'm gonna be real honest with y'all here. I was a young man playing that game, and I thought she was quite attractive. I mean, for real. What the hell was that? Oh, sorry.
Nothing important.
That was my balls falling when I was
Jesus,
like
Scott.
maybe in 3rd grade. But no, for real, watching Kamari Vosa like strut around, like she was a great villain, leader of the Bando Gora. Like, I don't know. She had such a cool little like tick to her. She kind of like did this like weird little thing. She had that short spiky hair. I'm like, this is a cool, very early 2000s villain now that you like really reflect on it. But I mean, she was powerful. She was like, the one that was in charge of running death sticks for the galaxy. Like, I don't know. I like a more Jared, I feel like you're a bigger fan of the fantastical. And maybe that's just who you are. You like the fantastical, the more mythic kind of thing. I like more of the character study in the sense of like, this is a believable character. This is someone that like you could really see being a main character in The Mandalorian. A broken Jedi who has some sort of ability of being a leader. And also I love that. I think it's the exact term is she was going to be a good ally, or no, something. Dooku says that she became a liability. And I'm like, that is such a cool thing that Dooku trained her. And I don't know, that was my character, because the idea of like, several bounty hunters going to go hunt her to get like a massive reward, but also to be the clone template for the most impactful army, I guess, in all the galaxy, the clone army. So I was like, that's such a
stock is a Jedi killer.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
Well, and that was the call to arms for the bounty hunters was they needed a Jedi killer, not just for the clone army, but just to like, it's 2 birds, 1 stone. It's a very, which I think is what plays from Kamari to Tyrannus with your list is you like lucrative dark side user. Like Yes, I could use the Force and I could do all this sorcerer stuff, but I'm also going to just go and be a gangster or a politician.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
it's very believable that politicians would be dark side users.
Or the person that's a drug smuggler would do the same exact thing, right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
I don't know. And then to have her minions be like these broken and creepy creatures, like that was, as a kid, you're playing this game like, oh my God, you're scared,
Right.
And I don't know. I just love the idea that Django took her down with 2 blasters the whole entire time. Like that is just, that's incredible. I don't know. I
just like that Django.
Just like.
Yep. Very, very simple honorable mention there, but then it leads to my number 3, which is Dooku. And like you said, a lot of it comes down to the fact that it's a believable character, a Jedi that's fallen. And even cooler, I believe in Tales of the Jedi, which is going to be the show that comes out in the near future. Yeah. We're going to see why that fall occurred, right? And I know we've got referential books, and we even got Master and Apprentice, which goes into that. But like Dooku as a character, obviously played by the great Christopher Lee. So that was cool in the early 2000s whenever, I grew up watching Bond, and I grew up watching Lord of the Rings. And then all of a sudden he's in this movie now too, and he's a great villain. But it's funny, you've got a character that's somewhat elegant. You've got a character that's not as like gritty as Darth Maul. Like I almost think you can go to a dinner at a nice restaurant with Dooku and have a great time. And not even know he's a villain. He's not even a bad guy. So there's something really appealing about that to me, where there are characters like Dooku or Kamari Vosa and the other 2 I'll get to later that just seem like this honestly makes sense. And I don't know, like what Jarod was talking about earlier, the more like he was more expertise in the, what made him special, what made his choice special. I just relate so much to the, like, I don't know, the ability to, and I just understand these characters in a weird way, maybe because I gaslight people, but also part of it could be, maybe part of it could, and I don't know what that means, but part of it genuinely can be because you see a character like that and you almost understand their fall, especially Dooku.
Absolutely.
Like especially Dooku.
Well,
he saw through the infallible Jedi,
Right. Well, and that's what built the fall of the Jedi, I think, was Palpatine realizing the Jedi's inability to adapt, and that the future of the Sith was to adapt.
Exactly.
Like the reason he went into
all they've
politics,
ever done for
it was
1,000
so much
years.
easier. What's that, Jarod?
Mm-hmm.
Adapting's all they've done for 1,000 years.
Exactly.
Yep.
And that's the thing, is their weapons then evolved from just straight on, launching a starfighter into the Jedi Temple and taking them out to, no, we're going to vote, right? That's how we win, by a vote. Like that, like it's such a interesting thing. But Star Wars has never been political. So, what are we talking about here?
I have never seen a single politic in Star Wars.
In Star Wars.
I also want to say one thing, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Go for it.
When it comes to a character, when it comes to a character like this, you I don't know, he's in on it too, which was the coolest thing to me, was that look that he gives Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith, like, you're about to kill me. Like, this is not a part of the rule. I'm the one that, precedes you. But, he looked at him do it, and he's like, that look that Christopher Lee plays is maybe some of the best nonverbal acting in Star Wars. Just perfect look. And then, boom, cut. And I'm like, that is just...
There's a head.
Yep, that's right.
And learning more about, like, if you're not following, first of all, Star Wars shot by shot, I believe is what it is.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
A new shot every day. They're doing Revenge of the Sith right now, but you can obviously scroll to your heart's content. But also Pablo Hidalgo, who is piggybacking on what they're doing and giving all kinds of interesting info. So Christopher Lee was never on set with Hayden or Ewan for that entire opening sequence of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
That acting was literally just him. And that's why you pay for Christopher Lee. That man was a legend. And if I had a glass, well, I have a coffee cup. I think he'll take that. We raise him high to the great and illustrious Sir Christopher Lee.
That's right.
On top of that, with Christopher Lee's input with Dooku as a character, if you read the Revenge of the Sith novelization, which is based off of like one of the early drafts of the screenplay, Dooku begs for his life.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
Christopher Lee.
Wow. I didn't realize
Christopher
that.
Lee told it's very much like with the whole, infamous Christopher Lee telling Peter Jackson, "That's not the sound a man makes when he's stabbed in the throat." Like
Dang it, Jared, you
Christopher
spoiled
Lee.
my joke.
Sorry. Well, Christopher Lee was like, Dooku wouldn't beg for his life.
Right.
You can how many minutes of screen time in total does Dooku have in the prequel trilogy? Christopher Lee was invested enough in that character that he was like, that's not who he is.
It's a
So
special
awesome.
thing because I mean, if you look back, he did the Hammer films with Dracula and everything.
Yeah.
And there
Some
was
of the best horror movies ever made.
there was a descending fascination with that character as time went on because of course the industry gets their hooks into things and whatnot. But he, there's interviews of him saying it's just like, who am I to deny people a good character, right? Like I don't want to do this film, but people want the character, so I'm going to give them the best.
And then he was Lord
Paraphrasing, of course.
Sundial.
Yeah.
But it's just like, yeah, I've got 5 minutes to do this, but I'm going to do my damnedest with what I'm given.
Heck
He
yeah.
puts his full ass into everything he ever did.
Completely.
That's
He
right.
even
Oh.
played Willy Wonka's dentist dad. Like,
Both
Exactly.
glorious feats.
That was like a
Anyway.
year later too.
I do want to say with what Scotty was saying about Dooku, one of the things that I love about him, and it's one of my Star Wars hot takes, is that if you remove, in theory, the Separatists are the good
Star
guys.
Wars theory.
No.
Go. But in theory, if you remove the fact that they're a puppet army for Sidious, and that the whole the Separatist alliance is backed by the biggest corporations in the galaxy, the idea that a Jedi Master stepped down from the Council and went, "I can't do this anymore. This is insane. This is absurd. All of you are so out of pocket and out of control. This needs to stop."
Well, and
If he wasn't tainted by the dark side and wasn't just a stooge like everybody else, Dooku would be one of the galaxy's greatest heroes.
absolutely. Well, because that's the tragedy. And if you get into his story, whether in Legends or canon, one of the things I do appreciate that while getting from A to B is different in either story,
Very
the
much
journey
so,
into
yeah.
the same place of the reason he left being for a good and moral one of I can't see this thing I once believed in. I can't willingly go along with this sinking ship. He left on high morals. It's just
Yes,
by
that's the best
time-
part.
When he circles back around, obviously again, corrupted and manipulated. And so, that's where we start to get into, right? The interest of, it's very easy to make a selfish character, but what makes them compelling is how you make them justifiably selfish.
Mhm.
And that's Sith all the way through, I think.
Heck yeah.
Yes.
My lovely Boop,
Yes.
you're number 3 because we're already at 40 minutes in.
Well, I
This
had
is amazing.
I had to think long and hard about my list in general because I'm not a Legends fan, like I've said, but I eventually came up with something. My number 3 is, stop laughing,
I haven't done anything.
Darth Maul from The Phantom Menace.
Oh. What the hell?
Oh, I see what's going on here. I love you. You're a
Darth
genius.
Maul.
People that know you are very surprised right now.
Okay, so I love Darth Maul, to a creepy degree, and I acknowledge
true.
that.
He's on my shirt.
Yes, he is. He's on my cup.
He's on my cup.
Yeah, I
Shout out to Star Wars Celebration Chicago.
Heck yes.
That's right.
Yeah, I love Darth Maul. That's no secret. I've never made it a secret. I'd never shut up about him, and I refuse to. So the first time I ever witnessed Darth Maul was, of course, watching The Phantom Menace for the first time. And there is so little of him in that dang movie, but ooh, is he cool?
Mm.
Coming out of freaking nowhere with one of the first double-bladed lightsabers on screen.
Mm.
Just that reveal of turning it sideways, second blade coming out. That broke my tiny
Horus enters.
freaking mind.
Ratama.
Yes, just like that.
Yeah, and it's not just yeah, it's mostly just how cool he looks because he is a very cool looking character, very creepy looking character at the same time. But you know, there is no words that I can say that haven't been said about the Phantom Menace and how much of a perfect movie it is and how Star Wars it is. But what makes that movie a fantastic action movie with some of the most, important implications throughout the rest of the dang saga is Duel of the Fates.
Yep.
I mean, that is a literal fight for good and evil with a Jesus-looking dude and a devil-looking dude.
I mean, it's very on the nose.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm going to say something controversial.
Oh, dear God.
I mean, it's Nerdherder. So, like, for me, I've already been very, I've said before, but for anyone that doesn't know, I did not like Obi-Wan Kenobi or Luke Skywalker when I first watched New Hope.
No, you did not.
I was a Han Solo kid. I wanted to be the one with the cool ship and the cool gun. Similarly, I really wasn't not moved by Darth Vader. Like, he looked cool, but he wasn't interesting until Empire, because I argue that he wasn't much of a character until then. But when Darth Maul shows up in Episode 1, similarly, Little John, like, it's just like, oh, this guy's got my attention, right? Like, he did what Darth Vader couldn't even do my first time watching, where it's just like, oh, he's definitely the bad guy. To know, no,
this guy
no,
is a threat.
I want to know everything
a threat
I can.
on legs.
Yeah,
briefly.
I think it's interesting you had that knee-jerk reaction to Maul, and then he ends up in the same place that a lot of the characters you already liked. That he ends up being like a gangbanger in space and all that. I think that's interesting. You kind of like willed that into existence.
Right. Well, and that's what's because I don't think that's why. I think it was just you had fallen in love again with Star Wars. And I was like, okay, I want to show you something I love that's newer to you. That was Clone Wars. I don't think it was because of Maul, but eventually it was because of Maul.
Getting through the first season of the Clone Wars is a bit rough.
Sure,
so I had to have something to look forward to, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, so it was interesting how that became a motivator because as
not a bad motivator, a good one.
As Kevin mentioned, I mean, he's eventually grown into such an amazing character. And I think we're already hitting on that. It's those things when we dig into the meat of who these weirdos are that we're talking about with multiple syllable names. Like, what's interesting is the journey.
Oh, very good.
Sure.
And
So,
like, there's a lot more to the character than looking cool, absolutely. But
but dang, does he do it well?
oh, he does. I had never seen any swordsmanship like that ever, and I think to this day, Duel of the Fates will always be the best lightsaber duel in all of Star Wars. If I can,
I agree.
It's
just
hard to
fling
top.
a hot take at your face.
It's hard to top.
It is.
I don't think that's a hot take. I think a hot take is not having it in at least your top 3.
I agree.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think I think you can edge it out. I think you can make a debate that on either an emotional level or on the level of choreography, other ones can beat it out. But if it's not in your top 3 on choreography alone,
right?
No. I don't know if you actually watched the movie or not.
And I think prior to like 2016, 18, when you hear Dave Filoni and Sam Witwer talking more about that and the mythos of that battle, you could have argued it out on choreography, but we've come to, and as you even mentioned, like, we're talking about Sith, and that battle is for the fate of the one who'd become one of the greatest Sith. So it's like, I don't think you can argue it's not an emotional battle, but I can give it to some people.
Oh no, I agree with you completely, and I think it goes to like one of the critiques about Maul in the prequels is like, oh, well, he didn't do anything. No, he sealed the deal.
Right, exactly.
He like if they realized it or not, he took the most important player next to Anakin Skywalker off the board.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes,
That's right.
His dad.
Would be.
And
it would be nice.
I promise that I have more like deep things like these two chuckleheads to say later. My entire thought for TPM Maul is just hot damn, and that's it.
Yeah.
Accurate.
Yeah.
For me, mine's already been name dropped, interestingly. But he is also from Legends, and it'd be
Oh.
the one who we have most of the modern quote unquote Sith to thank for, and I think that's Darth Bane.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of Darth Bane. I grew up. Those were some of the few. Well, book 2 and 3 were some of the few I was able to get at a younger age. And I was just curious of what else was out there. This was definitely still original trilogy is the dominant Star Wars thing, and so any other stuff was like candy. And
Yeah.
this character was so interesting because whether I know for a fact as a kid I did not understand the timeline stuff, but it was very interesting seeing the makeup of the Sith that would be to come. You know, obviously, original trilogy gives us Sidious sitting on his throne, if you will, and having the rule of two, and what kind of mythos Bane had begun and left to thank for that. Um, but on top of that, also like when and all of you have hit on understandably complicated and flawed, yet cool characters. And Bane's another one of those where it's like he's never not the bad guy, but for some reason you're enamored with his journey. You know it
Yep.
ends with him setting up the downfall of the Jedi and the Republic, but you're also like, I want to be with him on this. Um, he somehow still has high morals and all this other stuff when it comes to his apprentice. It was very different for a bad guy for sure for me, and it was unique. And so I've never quite gotten far away from Darth Bane on my favorite Sith list.
So when you were a kid, that was the one when you were younger.
Yes. Until
Okay.
he was usurped by my number 2, just to kind of tease
Oh.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
It was
Okay.
so hard for me not
It-
having Bane in my top 3. I was banking on
Really?
someone else having Bane.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
dude. I've got you.
And I appreciate it. As I was hoping we get to talk about him because I recently, again, Darth Bane was one of those characters that I knew from Wikipedia and that encyclopedia that I had, where it was like I know a lot about them, but I haven't gotten to know them yet.
Mhm.
And his Star Wars has never been political except for when it's extremely political. The fact that Bane is like this perfect distillation of how broken systems breed dictators.
Yeah.
Like Bane has nothing. He's this miner. He's just on this backwater ass crack planet, and then he gets swept up because an army of fascists went, "Hey, it sucks being around here, doesn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Come on!" And
shows
then
a little bit of talent, and it's like, oh, you're too good to be a slave. At least a slave, without a cause.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
it's you see the way that like these systems can kind of like mold the worst of it. It's very, like it's only a matter of time until the oppressed becomes an oppressor in an imperialist system. And that's what happens
Right.
with Bane.
Yeah, well, and that part of his journey is what's so interesting to me is it's almost, and like revisiting it now with other media that we've gotten, it's very Magneto-esque.
Yeah.
In
that's
that
true.
you've got this very broken and abused kid
Cool
because of this
helmet.
system. Cool helmet.
Yeah. Cool helmet.
And a monster ends up creating a monster out of this powerful person. But what I love is that he clearly gets tired of much like Boba Fett, working for people that are going to get him killed. Like I love that Bane knows how good he is, and how if he was in charge, if the Sith was different, they could easily have what they want. And that's his big thing, is he's not playing necessarily the long game. He's after results, and being a part of the Brotherhood of Darkness, there was never enough results for him that I think was satisfying. And that's interesting, because so many people would just be satisfied sticking it to the Jedi every now and then, but
Yeah.
he's like, no, we could wipe them out.
Mhm.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I think one of those things with like that you see with, reactionary and authoritarian regimes is that when you breathe that kind of environment, that like unhinged toxic nostalgia for a thing you weren't present for or didn't even really exist will inevitably creep in. And that's what happens with Bane, where he's like, I want the Darth title. Look at these real Sith.
Right.
Why can't we be real Sith? You know, like
I love
the Sith Empire great again type mentality.
Mhm.
I was gonna say I love how colloquial he is for like some fandom people, where it's just like, why can't we mix Star Wars like those guys, like George Lucas. Everybody loved it when George Lucas made Star Wars. But like pointing over there of just like, I want to be like them. I mean, he still has that draw of arrogance. Like, I want to be remembered. Like, he goes on this whole journey to get a holocron just because he thinks he's so worth being able to leave his wisdom and everything. And to a point, yes, because without him, we don't get what comes after. But it's just all of this, it's just this weirdly fascinating journey for a character, because again, you're into it because he's such a good window into, I don't like the Jedi, I don't like the Sith, I want something new, and you want to be there for whatever that new thing is. And so Bane's just interesting. And the books are getting a re-release. I don't know if it's all at once or whatnot, but I have seen that they are doing that, because unlike people think, they have not erased Legends.
No.
It still exists.
They just made them prettier covers.
Exactly.
Plus, it was he was voiced by Mark Hamill, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
so that
he
was
was.
that was a great moment. He's in Clone Wars, so like there's some things there with the character where like we do all have our own moments to gush over certain Sith Lords or anyone that's from the Legends or area of Star Wars, but like that's not Legends. That's like straight up like in one of the most popular animated Star Wars shows of all time, like in arcs of all time.
And he's referenced in the latest Secrets of the Sith book as well. So like it's there. Like Darth Bane, right? Well, because Darth Bane is a creation of George Lucas. People forget that, but like George is that guy that he'll write so much backstory before he'll write his actual story.
With too.
What's that?
It's such a George name too.
Oh,
it's true.
Yeah.
Bane.
And so, but that was created back for the Phantom Menace, and it just never, like, if you read the novelization, it's there, but it like none of it ever mattered to the movie necessarily. But George created it, and something has over time happened with it. And I think if we stick around Star Wars long enough, it'll continue to grow, and that will. I will not be surprised that we will get more canon Bane. And if I know anything about right, if I know anything
it's gonna
about
happen.
how they're handling that stuff, like if you look at Thrawn, if you look at a lot of these things that they are recanonizing from a different point of view, he's not going to be that dissimilar to the Bane that I love now. But I'm pretty sure I'll like whatever they do. So.
I like how we're almost an hour in. We've only ever done our honorable mentions and
thirds.
Yes.
Mostly my fault, and I apologize.
No, do not apologize.
This is great radio. Not sarcastic this time.
But do continue with your number 2, Jarod. It's back to you.
My number 2.
Uh-oh.
I don't think there is a Star Wars character, Legends canon or otherwise, who has held as many titles and has walked as many paths as Asherad Het, aka the one Sith.
Teach us.
Darth
Teach us.
Great. My number 2.
Teach us.
Jarod.
Time for a meeting with the minds.
Jarod.
Yeah.
My number 2 is also Darth Crate.
Okay,
let's go!
Hey. Okay, I would like to briefly break in.
I'm so happy
the
about
way
this.
I got John to watch Bombadcast for the first time was when Jarod was on talking about Legends. And as soon as you mentioned Darth Crate, he yelled exactly like that. So you were the reason, and Darth Crate is also the reason John is a Bombadcast person.
There we go.
There we go.
We all have our different paths.
Some for the Darth Crate, stay for the
Jarod. I have y'all on my headphones. I have to use the restroom real quick, though. I will say
pee-pee.
just very quickly.
Go.
So I can hear all of you.
Okay, ban him from the studio.
Right. He's never coming back.
No, so JD, I think we're gonna end up tag teaming me this one. Darth Krayt, like we said, like Exar Kun is this Jedi who turns to the dark side because they are convinced that the light has nothing left to teach them.
Yeah.
Asherad Het, if somebody had gotten involved at any point, could have stopped this. And it's almost like the tragedy of Darth Vader turned up a little bit because the ramifications of the wrong people at the wrong time stretch so much further than what Vader does, even though Vader's part of how we get here. I did the character bio for Exar Kun. Would you want to do the how we got here for Lord Krayt?
Sure. So for me, my first introduction was when he was full on Lord Krayt. So one of the biggest reasons I will say he's my favorite is because of how spanning his story is. Like you mentioned, the ramifications of it. It's partly because he has at such various points kind of just been picked up by writers and used as a momentum tool for what's going on at the current time. But the character, if you go chronologically, you'll meet actually in the Dark Horse Clone Wars comics, fighting alongside the likes of Kakruk, who's one of my favorite Jedi, mentioned on the previous episode, fighting along Quinlan Vos and so many other great Jedi. He's very like Quinlan Vos too. Like even if you're introduced to him as a Jedi, he's a very interesting guy because like he obviously believes in doing the right thing, but he also has a little too much fun with how he gets there. Much like Quinlan Vos, he's kind of that almost anti-hero kind of Jedi. And through a series of tragedies, including Order 66, we learn more about his heritage as he flees to Tatooine. And if you look back at older comics, it turns out that his father had connections with Tusken tribes, was also a Jedi. It's a weird familial connection, but he kind of gets a taste of power during this time on Tatooine when he's kind of lost his way from the Jedi Order, picking up the ashes and starting to kind of see the seeds of fall there without a structure. He was very much a character that as soon as you take away the structure, any good that was there became very malleable. And surely through very different trials and circumstances, we start to see him tip more and more to the dark side, add in a little bit of Yuzon Vong super armor, and you have Darth Krayt eventually. So it is very Legendsy in some ways. So the only Yuzon Vong I acknowledge is the Yuzon Vong that has to do with Darth Krayt. Just because it
I'm
helps.
so glad we were so very much on the same page.
Yeah, because it has to do with creating him, this sort of like living armor kind of situation that's both sort of keeping him alive, killing him. It's a very interesting bit of the story every now and then. But the most of his story has to do with generations after Star Wars as we knew it at the time. So 1 to 6. If you read Star Wars Legacy, again, Dark Horse Comics, you've got Cade Skywalker, who is as country bumpkin as he sounds, with a sawed-off shotgun and a lightsaber, facing off
and a nasty death stick addiction.
Yes.
Does he also have a mullet?
This sort of
rat tail?
No, not quite. It's definitely
think like a
shaggy,
messier version of Scotty's hair.
It's definitely
Scotty,
shaggy.
you should grow a rat tail.
But I'll say there's many a comic series. I would recommend the Clone Wars to get introduced to him. I'd recommend Legacy to see him at the height. But the most interesting thing you'll find about him is and it's funny that he follows Bane as my number 3 because Bane introduced the rule of 2, master and apprentice, right? This dichotomy of if you want to grow in power, you have to usurp whoever is in power. With Darth Krayt, he amalgamated that to a new thing of the one true Sith. So essentially, there's one Sith and his many servants. And so you get the likes of Darth Nihil, Darth Talon, who all the
I know that one.
yeah, all those boys will surely enjoy, and ladies, and non-specific gendered.
Thank you.
Everybody likes Darth Talon.
Talon is for the girls, the gays, and the days.
But yeah, if you ever wondered
I
what it was
wish.
like,
I wish.
if Sith went out and got group tattoos, that is what the one true Sith army looks like.
Dude.
But they all serve
Nuts.
Darth Krayt.
It's so fascinating because like the Sith, despite being the dark side religion, up until Krayt's time, and interestingly enough with this movie as well, it doesn't feel super culty
Right.
until Krayt's like, no, I'm the Jim Jones of the Sith.
Yes.
You know,
Flavor Aid.
Right.
you know, and it's Flavor Aid.
Exactly.
My last
Get your facts
podcast on the
straight,
left
people.
poster behind me. But no, I love that with him, and it's super tragic because, as you referenced the Outlander comics where we first meet Asherad. Later, Connor, love you, buddy. He, Sherad, his father, dies. Coyote Mundi, Asherad Het and Sherad are all helping fight this war on Tatooine between Gardulla the Hutt and the Tuskens and all of this stuff. And Sherad dies in the line of duty, and he gives his lightsaber to Asherad, and he says, never let this weapon be used in the name of vengeance. And it is so, you made the right face, depressing, because Asherad is so broken by Order 66 that he has that kind of crisis of faith, not unlike what we've seen in like the early episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi, where you or like a Jedi like a Ron Coda, where it's like, okay, well, the code as written failed.
Yeah.
What do we do now? We're like, everybody's dead. Clearly the system wasn't working. So there's like a darkness intrudes on him, and he goes back to Tatooine, and he becomes a warlord, and he's like raiding villages all over Tatooine, and he comes in conflict with Obi-Wan. This was one of my before we knew Vader was going to be in Kenobi, my big thing was, this is the Asherad fight. That's how you do it.
I wish, dude.
And like if they do a season 2, only story I want to see.
Well, no, but he's got to fight Darth Maul. He's got to fight Darth Maul.
He has to.
But yeah, so he throws down with Obi-Wan, and like again, Asherad's world gets shattered when its fathers die. It gets shattered when his father dies. It gets shattered when the Jedi are wiped out, and then it gets shattered whenever they're getting close to the Lars homestead. And Obi-Wan's like, "Okay, I challenge you to single combat." And Obi-Wan, you're gonna notice a pattern here with Master Kenobi, doesn't finish the job.
Yep. He
cuts his arm off, and because a mechanical arm would be frowned upon with the Tuskens, he's no longer able to wield a Gadurfi or a Gaffy stick or whatever you want to call it. So Asherad is exiled from his Tusken tribe. And then he becomes a bounty hunter. And then he gets lost in space. And then, like you were saying, he gets picked up by the Vong. But before he gets picked up by the Vong, he's like, I'm going to kill Vader and the Emperor. And then he finds out Vader and the Emperor have already been killed.
Right. Somebody did it for me.
Yeah. So he's like, well, the one thing I had left was revenge. So to hell with it. And he just tries to fly into space and kill himself. Then he gets abducted by the Vong, and he gets turned into this murder machine. Like, dude. It's just one thing after another, after another, after another. And then he, in between getting kidnapped by the Vong, that's when he turns to the dark side. He does almost exactly what Darth Bane did, where he just locks himself in an old temple and is just surrounded by holocrons and is learning about the Sith. And it's every time that something horrible happened to him, he chipped away at his soul a little bit more, and he fell darker and deeper into the muck.
Right. Well, because too, when he's doing that, is so like, whereas Bane had this relationship with old Sith and holocrons of just like, look how great they were, I want to be worthy of them and everything. Krayt, Asherad Het, he was sick of them because they looked so down on what he'd made the Sith, what he'd even become and everything.
Yeah.
So it's like he did. It was also this sort of everything he turned to in one way or the other let him down or left him broken more than when he began. And so that's the thing of him that's interesting as well, is that sort of, like you mentioned, this like murder machine. Like he's like a Terminator, man. He's so hard to keep down.
Yeah.
And he just keeps going, and it intersects again with the Skywalker lineage a little bit, which too, Cade Skywalker is a very interesting take on a Jedi-like character. I wouldn't explicitly label him a Jedi for the most of his journey, but
I think you could even call him
a
dark
Gray?
Jedi.
not
a great
Jedi.
Jedi.
I will
A great Jedi.
slap you. I will reach through this screen and slap the drink out of your hand.
But what's interesting about Crate and Cade as characters is, like, and I'm gonna kind of mess up my list because I've made him my number 2 on my favorite Sith, but he's also not a great Sith, just like Cade's not a great Jedi, and that's what makes them interesting.
That's a super interesting take, because I think in many ways Crate is like the ultimate culmination of Sith ideology, where like so much of it is like, I am the one Sith. It's all concentrated in me. All of you serve me.
Like God. Me being God.
I wouldn't disagree that he's a funneling of all that came before. I think though, by the time we get to him at his height, he's so different than what Sith had been before, what Sith were meant to be. That he is a Sith in the evil and the dark side sense, but I also think he's creating something new. But I'm starting to get like very philosophical with all of that. He's a great Sith, and he's
incredible. And when I was a kid, sorry, no, you said what you were saying.
I was just gonna say, like, those comics, like seeing a Sith like that, because everything we'd seen before was some old decrepit guy and this guy in armor.
True.
Right? Or some variation of that. So seeing this guy in this epic, like gladiatorial, like living armor with all of these amazing, like, you like Darth Maul? Okay, here's 1,000 of them.
I do
Like
Darth Maul.
you know, it was such an interesting evolution years ago at this point of the Sith and those characters. So
yeah, well, and the thing that I loved about him was that, like, again, like Asherad was one of those characters I learned about in that encyclopedia when I was a child, and I went, "Oh, I'm gonna use mine." I was like, "Oh, this is metal as fuck!"
Right.
Like, this is a Tusken Raider Jedi.
He did it.
he did.
Like, this is cool as shit. He's a Tusken Raider Jedi. Like, I remember like showing my dad and my uncles who liked Star Wars, but weren't like this,
Right.
And I was like, he's a Tusken Jedi.
Yeah.
How cool is
Well,
that?
I was gonna say, like, that was my thing, was the comic pack of this Tusken Jedi with Kenobi. And
I had the one that had Anya Kuro, the Dark Woman.
Oh yeah.
Where he nearly kills Aura Singh, because Aura Singh in Legends is an ex-Jedi.
Yeah.
And she was a Jedi hunter, and she's the one who killed Asherad or Sherad. And
Yeah,
I didn't
it's
know.
like, and that's what's so interesting. Like, if you get into this character, how much material there is. Like, if I'm talking about Darth Bane, I'm talking about 3 books and an episode of Clone Wars. If you're talking about Darth Krayt, Asherad Het, like, you're talking about multiple series with multiple issues, because you've got the journey with his dad. I had that one too, the figure that had Ki-Adi-Mundi and Sharad Het, and the comic, because those were some of the coolest things Hasbro did for a little while.
Bring it back. Bring it back.
Yep.
That was also where I got the Open Seasons Jango Fett comic. So much good stuff. But anyway, it was a gateway of just like, you can enter in many points, but anywhere you enter, this character is very, very interesting, and you can love him as a Jedi, you can sympathize with him as a broken man, or you can like drool over him as an epic Sith Lord. Either way, you're gonna have a good time, I think.
And
So highly recommend it.
Absolutely. And I want to say, like, as it was my early teen years where I found out who he was. So I was like, oh, this is super cool. And like,
Really?
like Darth Krayt was my, like, I only know about you through Wikipedia. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I was like, I would just read Wikipedia articles on all the Legacy characters constantly, but like Legacy hadn't wrapped up yet, and like the reveal of who he is hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So like eventually I'm like, oh, I'm gonna check back in on Darth Asherad. Asherad head,
Right.
and like freaked out. I was like, oh, I already used my one. I'm like, how in the hell are you still alive?
Yeah.
Like, and it just had this like moment of like, oh my god, and this is so sad and holy shit, like. It was crazy because for me, like I learned about Asherad in that encyclopedia and then in that comic pack, and then like I read The Life and Legend of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that was the first time I got so excited reading that because I was like Asherad, my god,
it was interesting, and I'll end on because clearly we can make this just the Darth Crate chat.
Yeah,
We will at some point.
But it was very unique at the time to have a character that had been along such major points of the saga like that, right? Like for the height of the Jedi, for the Clone Wars, for post Order 66, and now further beyond. It was so interesting to have such a long time with a character like that, and I think that's what made him interesting and what got you invested if you were there for the journey, and if you get into it, is because there's so much depth to him. It's not just like a final duel in the Phantom Menace, although that's epic. That's plenty valid to have as your favorite character. It's like, no, there's so much material to choose from as to why this character is at least interesting, but maybe your favorite. So highly recommend it. Again, there's lots of material out there for it, but
to say one last thing on it for people who aren't familiar with Crate, but like let's say use the MCU as an example. Let's say for the sake of argument that in 10, 15 years time, Nebula is the next big bad of the MCU. Like Thanos level threat.
I can see now I can make that comparison because I'm not I wasn't quite sure anything about Darth Crate. That was a really good way to level it.
Like you have a character who's like, oh, like they're interesting. They have a lot going on. They're not like central to the story for the most part. And then now they're the biggest villain who makes every other Sith Lord look like a bitch. Like he's just coming through and just puts his Tusken whatevers on the table. But
Tusken whatevers. That's the new snack from Nabisco.
If nothing else, look, Tuskens are more popular than they've ever been now.
That's true.
Take a journey, find out more about this Tusken Jedi. Highly recommend it. So we shared a 2. That was glorious. That was
good.
I was not expecting Darth Crate. I expected Darth Bane, but not Darth Crate. So I'm very pleased. But so now, Mr. Scotty, you're.
I would say this one may be most people's favorite Sith. So I'm willing to have all of your hands go up on this one. And it's possible that you have a knack for the obscure, but this is the character that, like, even as a kid, just nothing but interest, and that's Palpatine. I mean, like, truly deep interest in everything. And like I was saying this on I was saying this on streaming Star Wars last night. That there's a moment, like as a kid, I remember watching the Revenge of the Sith trailer before Incredibles, before the movie The Incredibles when it came out in 2004, and not not caring at all about what The Incredibles is going to be. Like not caring at all, y'all. Like I remember watching The Incredibles, thinking about that trailer I just witnessed, and there was that one shot with Palpatine, and he swings a lightsaber. I'm like, oh my god, he's coming back. Then I was like, hold on, wait a minute. So I pulled out my reference books because I had the Phantom Menace one, the Attack of the Clones one, and I had the original trilogy one. And I still have them over there. I'm looking through it. I'm like, oh my god, that's the same guy, but like messed up.
Aww.
And I'm like, as a kid, I mean, you're like 8 years old, and you have these realizations, right? You know, I didn't read a Wikipedia article when I was that young. I was more or less just looking through books and going, holy cow, this guy becomes that guy, and this is the movie that's going to do it. So when I went and saw that movie, my main focus, and I'm not kidding when I say this, was Palpatine. And so when he showed up on the top of that of the Invisible Hand, is that the name of the ship? I think it's the name of the ship. He's at the top of it. I'm like, oh my god, this is the throne room from Return of the Jedi. They're gonna do it. Like it was like all of it, right? It was all of it. So that being said,
good pull, kid Scotty.
Well,
recognizing the Lucasinian rhyme.
Well, that's the thing, right?
To be fair, I needed my dad to poke me and be like, "You remember the bad guy from the last movie? That's him."
Yeah. See, and that's the thing. You watch these movies, and that's when it became a saga for me. It went from being just a movie to being like a whole thing now. And like every little bit of it counts, right? So obviously I could talk about what it means to me personally, but in terms of a character, I mean, you've just got one of the greatest villains of all time, like through and through. Manipulative, the one that I can actually least relate to. Like I mean it.
Feel
Like
good about myself, right?
yes, you see a
Are you
character
sure?
like that. Yeah, I'm sure. You see a
Scotty doesn't
character like that, and it's pure evil. Just
Yeah.
the most evil it can be. You know, he held on to his life because of evil. Like, there's just so much there. And
Yeah.
like, I don't know. My big thing with Palpatine comes down to the fact that he had always had a contingency for everything. Literally, like if he woke up one morning, like with the alarm clock at a different time by accident, there was a plan for the rest of the day. like he just, I don't know. And like anytime, especially in the Clone Wars, you get these moments where like he makes a face and you're like, oh my God. Like, you know, the Zilla Beast was the best episode for that reason.
Oh
I think
God.
we're going to get some more of that in Bad Batch now. But the Zilla Beast is one of those things I'm like, oh my God. Like, you know, he had been thinking so far in advance, you know, pinning two different armies together, being the point that draws both of them in. Like, I don't know. You could talk about this character forever and what the impact he has over the Skywalkers. And then beautifully enough, Rey comes in at the end. If you don't like or you do like the movie, she, being a Palpatine, ultimately defeats, you know, a Palpatine does defeat another Palpatine. It's like, it's just, God, like I could talk about that for days because there's so much there. This whole entire, you know, saga so far has been what's the two families in Romeo and Juliet? The
Capulets,
the Asgards,
The
and
Capulets and the
Montague.
Montague,
Thank you.
right? Yep.
Montgomery.
Asgards, Montgomery's.
You've
They-
never read a Shakespeare play in your life.
so that being
I
said,
know he
though-
invented the name Jessica.
He did invent the
Oh
name Jessica.
wow, I didn't know that.
Yep.
That being said, you get a character, that you know, you watch these saga films and it's ultimately the battle between these two people, and then you watch them like The Mandalorian, and his impact is still there, where you see the Strand cast in the tube, and you're like, whoa, and then Palpatine or Snoke's themes quietly plays. You're like, he's just had his hand in everything, and it's impacted everybody. And I don't know, there is a mythos to him, but most importantly, most importantly, there is a certain, I don't know, there's a certain air to this character, and it's probably, I would really like to go on and say this, but he is probably one of the greatest fiction characters of all time. Like truly,
Absolutely.
to his core, like truly, which is a weird thing to say, you know?
Oh no,
Absolutely
Well-
true though.
Yeah.
Like I've said it on the podcast before. There is a reason that I will argue to the end of time that somehow Palpatine returned is not a bad line.
It's
I
not.
agree with you
One,
completely.
How would they know?
It makes sense.
How would they know?
But
Yeah.
also, does Palpatine strike you as a man who dies?
No.
Absolutely not.
exactly.
He's a man with contingency plans A through like 65. Okay,
Yeah.
Right.
like that is a lot of planning.
The
Yep.
exasperation in Poe's voice as well. We're like, like it's that level of like,
Again.
you know,
Right.
like okay, we killed. Like obviously he wasn't present for it, but like when Operation Cinder was coming down, you know, the rebellion went, okay, holy God, we killed the Emperor.
Right.
Oh my God, he's still killing us.
Yep.
And, like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so like
Well-
the fact and like his like he was conceived at Endor. Like of course Poe's like somehow he's back.
On the-
I
on
thought my
that
parents helped
lovely
whack this
forest
guy.
floor.
Yes.
Well, like the one thing I'll say about the whole Poe line is like I've never felt that more in the sense of like, because I mean, really, they're fighting a war,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden now some evil space wizard has entered the chat. It's like, all right, as if things weren't bad enough, guys.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like I feel for the people.
This is who we're fighting.
You know, like because
Great.
I mean,
Exactly.
even the original trilogy, if you watch it right, there's this whole war going on, and then there's this personal journey, right? There's
Yep.
the Skywalker thing going on, and then there's actually galactic war.
Yeah.
And so I felt so bad for Poe in that moment of like, hey guys, they're at it again.
And there's like real logistics to go on in this war.
But
Oh yeah.
Palpatine would definitely be my honorable mention. Only because I do believe, as has been well stated at this point, though, like he is such an antithesis of the Sith, an
Exactly.
antithesis the Sith,
He is
if you
all
will.
the Sith.
Just
Yep.
because like it's the natural evolution of things. Like, you know, we talked about early on, the weapons of the Sith have evolved from sabers to politics, and he's a very interesting. You can't escape his intrigue as a character. But for me, I obviously my other two have more to do, I think, with nostalgia and how they make me feel. Palpatine doesn't make me feel anything. He's just daggum interesting.
Yeah.
And to kind of counter with Bane, Bane also tried to look at prolonging his life, but only so long as the Sith could live on. Like, I only want to live long enough to get killed by a worthy apprentice. Whereas Palpatine, all of
He
his
has no
contention,
intention to die.
and he will not let it pass on. He believes he is the one who
Exactly.
should be the one the holding the leash of the Sith forever. You know, and that's the whole deal with the Final Order. All of that stuff is so that he can once again have power, because he can't.
And
He doesn't trust anybody else with it.
No, he's going to jump to Rey and take over her body. You know?
Exactly.
That was the beauty of it. Like, it's like you've got a character who will then transfer his essence, who he is, into someone else, just because you're right, he can't trust anybody with it, right?
Right. It's not even this just like, you go do my, like, no, let me have your body so I can ensure my legacy. It's just
No.
it's incredibly interesting and hella maniacal for sure as well. So
Absolutely.
You know,
hard to escape the enigma that is Palpatine. So
If he
yeah,
I agree.
had a
he's
mustache,
the
he would
ultimate
know.
evil. You know,
he is.
like
He is.
like look at Bane, look at, you know, he's the same flavor of evil, like do some of mine, like Exar Kun, but like taken to like the nth degree, because you have somebody like Palpatine doesn't believe in anything.
No.
He believes in Palpatine.
That's
It's
right.
not about the ideology of the Sith, although he holds himself on this pedestal as the ultimate Sith.
Right.
But that's the only reason why he cares about the Sith, because he's the best one. He
It's
wants
right.
like
yes. It's self-serving.
that's all it is.
Which is why he's the best Sith. The best Sith are the most self-serving. Like, because that's
Exactly.
all it is. Is it the if you want to know the difference between light and dark, it all just boils down to selfless versus selfish. That's it.
Yep.
Like, I mean, not that takes away, like, that is a grandiose idea, but if you boil it down in simplicity, that's really what's happening. That's why Rey beats Palpatine. That's why Luke rescues his father. Like, when you get into the nitty gritty, all of it happens because they make a choice to be a different kind of person, and not.
He's also the most convincible one to like retcon in certain things. Like, yes, he could show up. He could show up in 9 just because that's who he is, and you
Right.
can almost write every story from here on out that way. Like when Rey blows him up into hell, like you could still say, "Oh, he came back." Like
Right.
you
He came back
he
as a heart cloud.
has he has so many opportunities for him to come back. He could come back as another clone, or he could be cloned on a different moon somewhere. Like, he's the most infallible character, I think. Like, he's the one that like you could convincingly see show up in I don't know, I mean, anything at this point. I love that about him. And like,
he suffers from Batman syndrome in that way, but
Yes.
when you use it sparingly, it works.
yes. And
Absolutely.
I think I don't know if they'll ever do it again, but I just know Ian McDermott, if it wasn't for him portraying the role, and he has always, you know, except for Sam Witwer a couple of
It would
times,
not have worked.
it would not have worked. And like, that character is so intrinsic to the actor. And
Mhm.
like, you know, it's one of the few where you can get fantastical with it, like all the Legends ones y'all are speaking of, right? But like, to have an actor truly portray a character, you know, and obviously there was something written about Palpatine before, like on a deeper level, but like, man, like it's just so well done. Like they could cast, you know, like y'all were saying, Darth Krayt or Darth Bane in a show, and you probably have like, oh, why did they choose? Nah, he just didn't fit the, you know, like. But with Palpatine, you have, you know, Ian McDermott. You can't even complain. You literally can't complain. It's
Absolutely
too
not.
perfect.
Oh yeah.
I still remember that moment in Celebration 2019
Mhm.
when he came on stage.
Oh, you know,
Everyone just screamed, especially you, Scotty. But
right.
like, that was a moment that I will never forget because of how
Mhm.
much energy he had and how much of a hold that he had with 3 words.
Yep.
I just love how much it still works. Like, for it to still work in 2019, for that. Like
Oh.
him in the makeup, it's like he never left the character. It's like nothing.
Mhm.
It's like you say,
Dude.
it's so tied to him.
And that laugh at the end of the Rise of Skywalker.
That's
trailer,
exactly what
my
I was
heart
gonna
stopped.
say.
Right.
Like
The way that like that. There's so much going on in that trailer, and it was such a vision of things to come. Of like, oh, what the hell is happening? Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Yeah. No
Yep.
one's ever really gone quiet. And you're like, oh no! Oh god! Jesus God! Oh no! Everyone's gonna die! Like
Yep.
it's just the immediate like nobody here is
Yeah.
prepared to deal with him.
And
It's terrifying. He is
that
horrifying.
what I've loved about this journey with modern Star Wars is it's taken me back to that place. And this is totally off topic. We'll get back, I promise. But
someday.
like that wonder and awe and excitement there of like we don't know where they're going after 8. We like at any given point we knew nothing. What's episode 7 going to be? What's episode 8? Like how are we going to get like I was so there for all of the unknown, for all of the enigma, because it was just so exciting to get so many new things, first things, while also getting nostalgic with things. And certainly Rise of Skywalker is probably the most well mixed drink of Star Wars-ness that we got from that.
I agree.
All right, you little chicken nuggets, if you're still tuning in, this is going to be a long one, but we are circling back to our first. I'll save mine for last since we're going together.
Ooh.
Oh wait, right, that's right.
I'm
I did this again.
podcast
I did this
too.
last time.
Yeah, you just saw the Jedi
Well, you
one.
talked so much about Palpatine. I thought that was your.
You know for
that
a
was your
fact that it
second
was
one.
not.
I do.
Okay. So, gentlemen, surprising no one, my second favorite Sith
Here we go.
is Darth Maul.
I
Darth
love
Maul, specifically from Rebels this time.
Oh, okay.
Yes. You can
The
guess.
torn up one.
Exactly. I
Mhm.
love a broken character so much. I love a character who has been just taken and put into a blender and pulsed a few times, taken
Yeah.
out, put in under a broiler for a couple of hours, make them a little crispy, and then take away their legs again. And I think I've waxed poetic on this show so many times about the character and the tragedy of Darth Maul, and that comes to a head so much in Rebels. You get the purest form of spite will leave you cold. Spite will not save your life
Mhm.
ever. You cannot live off of spite and anger alone.
Nope.
And that is a character to be pitied and a character to be remembered as a lesson in what not to do. And we get all of that in Maul in Rebels.
Yeah.
You get old man Maul at first, who is just, I love a precious conniving old man. Exactly. Just wearing a blanket because that's what you do when you get old. I love the arc that Ezra goes through in those episodes, kind of grappling with, oh, I could get what I want if I have this, which is, I think, something that all of our favorite characters have gone through. Being tempted by the dark side, by the one who arguably has benefited some of the most by the dark side. I mean, the dark side quite literally saved his life. Is it healthy? Absolutely not.
Mm-mm.
Is it interesting?
Yes.
Oh.
It's very interesting.
And
then, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, like with how you're talking about Ezra, like that, no more than in Rebels, but especially throughout his entire character journey, Maul is a character that affects other characters.
Yes, he is the fulcrum of a lot of the story. Not like the fulcrum, but like a fulcrum.
See what you did there.
Thank you. He would make an excellent rebel if he, was interfered with at a young age. If he went to the Boys and Girls Club on Dathomir.
If things went very differently, yes.
I've toyed with writing a fan fiction about that. I was actually talking to Taylor about this last week or 2 weeks ago.
Me.
Is that I just have there's just this huge number of I want to write that one day outlines, just talking about what if twin sons went differently. I have that's what's on my shirt is all the different times Obi-Wan and Maul crossed paths. Twin sons is on here, and he could have been so much more, and it's so
Yeah.
tragic.
If-
And
If Obi-Wan had just been like, "Come inside, please.
Yeah.
Let's sit down for 5
Yep.
seconds and talk about
knock it
this."
off
It
for
doesn't
30
have to end this
seconds,
way.
you
It's
absolute moron. And let me
Yeah.
just stop.
the
5
duel of
minutes.
fates would have been completely different
Yeah.
for sure.
And
Yeah.
that's the most major tragedy of Maul as a character is it didn't have to be this way.
Yep.
Mm-mm.
But
He's
at the
one of
same time,
Palpatine's like premium victims. I'm sorry, I keep talking over
Go
you,
ahead.
but
no, that's
no,
exactly
it was
what it is.
just that thought, you know.
Yeah.
Like he was taken at infancy
Yep.
from his mother and trained to be one of the perfect Sith.
Mhm.
And that is tragic. Like he never had a choice. And that's
Yep.
why I love him so much, honestly.
Well, and that's the thing is, I mean, he constantly felt like he kept progressing as if he had no choice but for vengeance, but for what he's been taught and all this other stuff. And like that's what Rebels does so well is
Mhm.
like, yeah, we get the makeup of the character from Clone Wars, but Rebels ends it off
Yes.
and reminds us the kind of character
Yeah.
and lesson he should be, and that like you choose
Mhm.
to or not to stay
Exactly.
in that place, you know, like
Yeah.
the exchange of dialogue in Twin Sons, you know, what I've risen above and all that, like
Yeah.
it's staring you in the face
Yeah.
of like
And it's a great reminder that all of the Sith that we interact with in the Clone Wars, the prequel era, are victims. They were victims of circumstance. They were victims of actual trauma. Like they made their choice at the end of the day, but they were victims of many great circumstances. And I could keep going, but hey Scotty, what's your number?
Oh no, I do want to speak to Broken Maul real quick, if you don't mind.
Absolutely,
Because
please.
that was one of the biggest shocks of Rebels, that we were going to get a Broken Maul, and you know,
Mhm.
and then we end up getting, and you know what? There's another version of Maul that we can add to it. Obviously, we'll talk about Clone Wars Maul, I guess, if I can guess, Boop's next one. But
You can.
okay. So we're going to get
We're
at
neither
some point.
confirmed nor denied.
They're going to, in some capacity, talk about, you know, Crime Lord Maul, and that's going to be
Mhm.
so cool to see too. But it's a character that has had so many chances to come back to the light, but also come back as a new character.
Exactly.
And he has come back as a new character, but like it's one of the few characters that has gotten a bunch of different things in every form of Star Wars storytelling. And like I'm just thankful that we've got a character that's multifaceted.
Exactly.
And that's obviously extremely important to the saga, but unfortunately is a child of just, you know, never being number one. He's always a second place, you know, even like person. It's bad, right? He was second place to Clone Wars because he, you know, couldn't come back in live action. George even considered, you know, Maul to show back up in the sequel trilogy, apparently. You know, like it's just he's always had this chance to come back, and like unfortunately due to his character flaws he never will. I don't know. I love that character. That's the one character that is truly the most compelling, I would say,
Yeah.
of the Sith to me. Like truly compelling.
yeah.
He gets in his own way every single time.
Yep.
Like,
Yes, he
has so many
screws himself.
opportunities to
Yep.
just let go.
Mhm.
Just
Oh.
take a hand of someone for Pete's sake, please.
Yep. Nope.
Well, and it's the last character you expect to get those sorts of interesting stories and life
Yep.
lessons from. You know,
Are the action figures.
Oh, I have an entire shelf right there.
oh yes,
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like that's something that I've loved. I mean, granted, Clone Wars is pre-Disney, obviously, but like the Disney era of, hey, let's give these action figures a personality between Maul and Boba Fett at this point, you know, like it's one of my new favorite things is like,
Yep.
it's like you said during the Jedi episode, like, you know, okay, let's get this over quickly. I like Boba Fett. Yeah, he looks cool, doesn't he? Cool.
Right.
Moving on. And now it's like, yeah, Boba Fett, he's like really complicated.
Mhm.
Yep.
He's got a lot
Absolutely.
going on right now.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is like, you like mentioned there, it's like we can go as deep as we want to, or it can just be he's a really cool little guy who's interesting to kind of tag along with through the story.
Yeah.
You know, he's the great little foil along the way, or you can get deep with it.
Yeah, you can get
Yeah.
deep and you can get sad.
It just
You can even
depends
get
on
jiggy.
how far you want to go with them. But again, it's so interesting that we're talking about Maul like this, like 20 plus years later
Yeah.
after the Phantom Menace. No, I never would have thought he's become the character that he is now. But I'm so glad
Yeah.
I'm very glad he is.
Also, Crime Lord Maul is my honorable mention.
Crime Lord Maul.
Yeah, there you go.
I can't wait to get more of that. That's gonna be so cool.
Oh,
That would be
dude.
so cool.
So now, Jarod,
Here we go.
you're number one.
Do you really think we could talk about the greatest Sith of all time and not invoke the granddaddy of the Jedi turned Sith and not invoke the greatest Jedi killer of all time? Cue the damn music. It's Darth Vader. Come on. Let's go. Yeah, maybe Vader being number one is a little phoned in.
I mean, if it is, then I'm right there with you because that's also my number one.
No way! Do it.
I'm
Go off,
serious.
Queens.
I'm serious.
Go off.
Yep.
All right,
Darth-
let's
Go
get back
off.
to Scotty.
Listen, the thing that I love about Vader in this context of your favorite Sith Lord, any type of how are we going to compile the Sith and whatever direction you want to come at it from, Vader is, for the most part, unambiguously the number one. He is the granddaddy of the greatest movie villains of all time. He is the trendsetter for so many different types of archetypes in Star Wars. You want a redemption story? I got you. You want a complicated family story? I got you. You want a Jedi hunter? I got you. You want a fallen Jedi? I got you. It's literally all of these archetypes of Star Wars that he is the blueprint for. It's like poetry. It rhymes. He's so complicated. He's so complex. And Vader is one of those characters. And I think it's funny that we have seen him do so much wretched shit. But because we know how the story ends, we know eventually he'll be redeemed and he'll go to Force Heaven and blah, 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 blah. And it's all of that. But in the meantime, since we already told you, and, we're all going to drink the Disney Kool-Aid and do whatever the hell we're told to do and watch our Star Wars, we're going to let Vader get away with whatever the hell we want him to.
Yep.
Let's go back to the sequel trilogy discourse about Kylo Ren. Every time Kylo breathed in a way audiences didn't care for, you'd have entire think pieces about why Kylo Ren is an irredeemable villain and blah, 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 blah. Vader can do anything because we already know he will be redeemed. And that's another thing. How redeemed is he? Another conversation. Hard one to unpack. But
Very hard.
but that's what happens.
Yeah.
Tell your sister you were right. We know that's how the story ends. So we can have him do whatever twisted, horrible shit we want. And we're going to eat it up.
Well,
We all saw Rogue One. We were all sitting.
oh,
We were
man.
all there oh my God. It's so
did watch
so
that
beautiful.
movie.
It's like you did all the hope and all the feels and they sacrificed themselves and then
I've never moved on.
we
from
all
cry-
turned heel.
Yeah, I've
We
never.
all turned
I've,
on the rebels.
I've never
Every single
moved
one
on
of
from
us.
crying so quickly. But now I will say, with the sequel trilogy discourse, they did a great job casting Adam Driver because for me, he can
Yes,
get
they
away with
did.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, me too. I got Kylo
Yeah,
tatted on my
way.
thigh.
Right.
And Ben Demption, Raylo, everything all the way. for me.
Adam Driver can do whatever he wants.
That's right.
It's true.
Even turned into a centaur.
But
He can turn into a centaur,
apparently,
can't he?
which I
Commercials.
feel like is feeding the wrong crowd, but whatever.
What
Yeah,
do you mean? You think it might be problematic to just tell everybody, "Hey, look, he's hung like a horse," quite literally?
It's a perfume
Surely, well-adjusted human beings will consume this in a responsible way.
Of
Surely,
course they all do.
surely.
Look at his
Um,
hands. Anyway,
Everything you
He
said,
does have big hands.
I second. I think he is such a. If you take it down to its barest, I think he's just the most well executed villain, if not one of them. But I think he's so well done in a tragic way, but also just in a villainous way. What I love about what Kenobi's doing is they're not pulling punches, that he is evil. He has done bad things. but they continue to remind us who is still deep down in there.
Mhm.
And for me, and it's way too much to unpack. That's why, like I mentioned it in the Jedi episode. Like, if you ask me my deep, meaningful favorite character, it's Anakin and Darth Vader. Um, and I do separate them in to a degree, and it's because of that separation. It's because of the journey that he's gone on, especially in canon in recent years, to sort of separate himself from his past to try and forge this new him to justify everything he's done and to make it all somehow worth it. Like, there's just all of these interesting illustrations for redemption and mental health and just struggling in life and with moving on from your past and everything that make
Absolutely.
Darth Vader so interesting. So it can be just because he's so dang good at being bad, much like we talked about with Palpatine. But it can also be, no, I see a little bit of myself in there, because I certainly do. And any character I love and anything I love to a degree is going to have a piece of me in it. And that's why I always, caution people, when you crap on something someone else likes that you don't get, you don't know how much of them is behind that choice.
It's
Mhm.
true.
And so you've really got to tread lightly. And so with me, yeah, there's a little bit of a reflection in the character, and I like that. But I also do like that hallway scene and the times where he just gets to go beast mode, because that's epic too.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's part of the character.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things where, like, I don't want to get into spoilers for this week's episode of Obi-Wan, but it is the justification. I mean, we talked about this on Knights of the Nerd Republic, that you can get what we could refer to in shorthand in a very dismissive way as like dude bro Star Wars
Mm.
with the right execution and the right end goal in mind. Dude bro Star Wars, sorry, you
You're
can't
fine.
say the F word now, Scotty. It works.
You've blown your budget of Fs, man.
I know. Well, he made 2 Elfrona jokes, so I get it. But like in moments like that, it works, and especially with Vader, those moments where he comes unglued and he's just massacring a hallway of rebels and he's lighting people on fire. I'm
Right.
surrounded by nothing but fear and dead men. That iconic panel, it works because the point is, how far gone is Anakin?
Right.
Mhm.
And
You
deep
know?
down, to a degree, although we know that redemption happens and we want that happy ending, we also do. Again, and I think it's a little bit of seeing yourself in there. You also want, like, the kid to be able to have a temper tantrum, like when
Yeah.
you're hurt,
gotta
when
let it
you've
out.
been betrayed and let down, when you've sacrificed so much and gotten so little for it, you want to flip out,
Mhm.
and you do so vicariously through these stories and these characters, I think. But what Star Wars has always pointed to is Episode 6, that choice. That doesn't necessarily undo everything if you want to get really deep with redemption and everything.
Of course.
But in that moment, he does finally make the right choice.
Yeah.
We're talking
Yeah.
about Maul being a character that constantly makes the wrong choice. It all comes down to a choice, and it's where you're going to choose to go with that.
I do want to say something about Vader, even though he's not on my
Please.
list. Part of the thing in JD, the xenomorph on your microphone is part of this kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
You've got a character whose design was so intrinsic with death, right? His
Mm.
face is literally a skull. And it's funny, like, I always saw that design. I always agree with it. Ralph McClure obviously approached it from that perspective. But, like, it wasn't until the episode part 3 of Kenobi that I really saw it. When he's standing there and the flames are rising in his lenses, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like, that is truly to itself, like, that is a skull, you
He is
know?
death.
And like, he is death, right? And there's some lines in that episode in particular that made me appreciate Vader more. And I think as the years go by, we will get more Vader, and it's inevitable, right? But
Yeah.
most importantly, in terms of, he is a product of other people's choices, which is a weird thing to say, and his own. A lot of it's
Makes
his
sense.
own. But like Qui-Gon taking him from Shmi, that changed him permanently. It might not. it confused his perspective on love and what love means, and that love's a possessive thing. And on Bombadcast, I've said this for years. Bombadcast have always said that Vader in Revenge of the Sith is the best episode of That's So Raven. And I mean it, because you get a character. Yeah, but you get a character who who did everything to prevent the future he saw in his vision. And what he did was he inevitably caused it. That's every episode of That's So Raven. So like, it's such a weird thing. You got a character that manifests death, that brings death, but it's his death that saves him. And it's such a, I don't know. There's something to that, right?
It's very there's something very poetic and philosophical.
But like
there for
when
sure.
you take the helmet off, and he's not even a man. He's like what? He's almost. I saw Joseph Campbell, the guy who obviously inspired George, described it as he's a worm of a man, and he is. He's just there. He's just like cut open. He's just gray. Like that. That's such a compelling image, and I'm hoping, and I really mean this, I'm hoping with this finale of Kenobi, in the upcoming week, we will all have a different perspective on Vader to add to this list.
Right.
Give us more, right? We need it. We don't need it. We got enough already. But every layer they've decided to add to this character has been so well done, even in Rebels, and obviously the great moment at the end of Clone Wars Season 7. That was one of the greatest moments ever.
Yeah,
when he sees himself in the reflection of a clone helmet that is also the reflection of his Padawan's face. Like, that is just like, God, like, you can't get much better than that. You really can't.
Well, and we've like you said, we've gotten more, and I think we will continue to get more. I trust their well-placed hand with him in storytelling, because everything we've gotten has been valuable to the character that we already feel we know so well. But again, it's that we're not growing in knowledge, we're growing in depth.
That's right.
Everything's just adding another layer deeper. And I saw somebody had an article that somebody had written, and they were using it as a sort of slander piece to Kenobi, because they're saying, like, well, it's more about Vader than it is about Kenobi, the title character and everything. And I'm like, I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing, because I'm enjoying both.
Also, those characters are so linked intrinsically.
You can't take them apart anyway.
You couldn't have Vader without Obi-Wan, unfortunately.
Nope.
That's part of the
Man, I came to watch this Batman movie, and there's so much Joker in it. Like,
right, seriously.
Shut up. That is the brain dead malarkey. I'm censoring myself.
Tell me you don't get Star Wars without telling me you don't get Star Wars. But
I'm
anyway,
changing my Twitter bio to brain dead malarkey.
Oh, it's good.
You're welcome.
Fan name.
I want to take something Scotty brought up, and I want to really wax poetic here for a second.
Oh.
I love the idea that that Anakin Vader is like this product of other people's choices, chief of which is his own. It is this level of like right place, right time, or wrong place, wrong time.
It's wild.
That you need like the Emperor needed Qui-Gon to die, and he needed to do this, and he needed to launch the war, and he needed Anakin to survive the war, and he needed all these things, and Anakin makes that choice to turn because of all the trauma, all of the things that shaped him as a person, to have that possessive love and that, like, well, I can't let her die. What'll I do without her?
Exactly.
And one of the things I think is so profound and disturbing about Vader is that when that helmet does come off, what you see is not the burn victim.
Yeah.
It's the dark side degradation.
Yeah, it's true.
He has sold his soul down the river so hard and has let his darkness consume him to the point where even in Obi-Wan, he's still red and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's still burnt. In those 9 years, there is so much darkness in him that the Force eats away at his body and leaves him this gaunt, like, just specter looking thing. Like, that is how much he needs the dark side, and it's just like it's all he has left.
He's possessed.
It's exactly it's all he has left, and I think it makes his turn back more meaningful, and to not get into the whole is he actually redeemed or not conversation.
Time for that, Brian.
We don't.
Right.
We don't. To my short version of that is up to every person who has ever dealt with Darth Vader. But as far as the Force is concerned, they know what Anakin Skywalker's soul looks like in those final moments.
Yeah.
And I'm not a very religious person. However, I think there's something deeply spiritual and beautiful about that, like, you know, the Force knows. The Force knows that given the opportunity, the lengths Anakin would have gone to fix his mess.
That's right.
But,
Sure.
you know, I've always said my favorite character in Star Wars is Kylo Ren, and it's because my favorite Star Wars character is Darth Vader. And I think it's one of those interesting parallels where, like, Vader truly all he had left was the dark side. I don't think it ever truly crossed his mind that maybe he can come back until Luke was like, "This isn't who you are."
Yep. Well,
Knock it off. And then it's one of my favorite under, you know, very, very, I don't want to say underwhelming, but like very restrained moments where Luke goes up the elevator on Endor and Vader just kind of looks over the forest.
Oh, it's brutal.
And there is just so much subtext there. I would go so far as to say that the moment where Vader just silently looks into the distance and just ponders the last like 22 years has just as much like retroactive subtext of how did my father die?
No.
And like that Obi-Wan doing one of these, people have died before they turned to evil. Like it has that. It has the same amount of like, well, shit, you drive a hard bargain, Luke.
That's right.
Like, and there's so much to that fight that comes after it. Is he saving the Emperor? Is he saving Luke from the Emperor? Like, what is happening? And it's just
it's all from a certain point of view.
It's all from a certain point of view, and Darth Vader's the GOAT.
So, yes. I to Brian's question, I do think he's the chosen one. I absolutely do.
Absolutely.
I believe in the Book of Esther approach to that kind of conversation, in that there's a chosen one for a chosen time, and that's an episode in and of itself.
Oh, we should do a chosen one episode.
Boop has my number.
Yes, absolutely. And to your point, and I think we see it in real life with people, right? You get to a certain point where you're so gone, all you can feed on is the thing that is the most damaging, taxing, and pressing thing. You actually hate it, but you can't live without it, right? Like this
like Scotty Jarod.
this dependence on negativity that people have. I mean, it's exactly that of just
every
like
day when I reply to one of his
I can't
tweets.
quit this, right? You know, I don't know what life is without this thing. It is who I am at this point. And so
unintentional joke, but I mean, so accurate as to what this character represents. I agree.
Absolutely.
I am what you made me.
Right.
Exactly.
I love the
Go
journey that is
Tigers.
happening here. And speaking of, we journey on. Scotty, your number one.
My number one, I'm
Me.
extremely passionate about, and I almost think everyone could guess who it is at this point. But it's not because of who he is; it's what he did, and it's Plagueis. My God. Like obviously George's last little here's this. That every director, even I think Rian Johnson, I know JJ talked about it. They've said that's their favorite moment in the prequels. And you know what? I don't blame them. It may be one of the most spectacular. You're right. It is one of the most in-depth character moments we get between Vader and Palpatine, or Anakin and Palpatine. Like, it's what sends Anakin over. It's the exact thing he needed to hear in that moment. You know, Palpatine had a realization of that because he's a master manipulator. But it's because Plagueis actually was, to me, the like Bane too, the last little thing touched by George Lucas. Like, that was like, here is an insane moment, and it's very the whole. I can watch the whole thing and break it down for y'all, but the whole conversation is beautiful because the way Palpatine looks at Anakin when he says to create life, you're like, oh. Like the whole entire time, like, this is what you are, the product of that, right? Exactly. And you know, that's always been a subtext thing that's never been, you know, explicitly said at this point. But like, Plagueis in the background was the one that did 5 of the biggest events in the Star Wars prequels. He and James Luceno is obviously, I guess, key for writing this. But like, You get explained about the midi-chlorians. You get explained why the Trade Federation has this whole situation. You get explained all about Master Sifo-Dyas in this one book. Like in this one book, you even get credit to what the hell happened on Malastare. Okay, you get so much in this one novel about this one character. It is so well written. But the thing is, it's not just because it's well written, it's because the character's so convincing. You get the last lineage before Palpatine, and they bring up Bane the whole beginning of that novel. Bane is a main character, if you will. They like talk about Bane, him and his I think it's Hugo Damask was his master. But what do you want to say, JD?
No, I was gonna say one of the last remaining classic Sith too before Palpatine.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
Because as we've talked about, he evolved so much of what that title and what that practice means. But Plagueis was definitely the last dark sorcerer kind of Sith I think we got.
Yeah.
And I'm so passionate about it because it's the one novel that has ever really and truly broken down what a midi-chlorian is and how it's not, because they don't explain. The films did an okay job of explaining it. 20,000, that's more than Master Yoda. People took away that it was how strong someone is, when it's not that. It's how many certain types of I guess you could say organelles are located in a blood cell of your body, right?
God,
And like, but that's the thing. That's the thing.
What you got to be to really get it.
Exactly.
But like part of it, and you may be right, but part of it's this thing where like, midi-chlorians, I could talk about that forever, but he particularly, like, he touches people when they die to see what the midi-chlorians do, to understand where the midi-chlorians change. How does that give people life? How does that keep people alive? And he's that one character that sculpted and molded Palpatine into the sick savage he is. And that's the whole like second part of the book where you get, how does he form Palpatine? He even goes as far as to finding Darth Maul, right? He ends up kidnapping Darth Maul from Dathomir. You molds that character. So it's like, you got this character that is, to me, the only true like intellectual, and I'm not a fan of that word or the fan of the word scholar, but like this man is like an intellectual when it comes to how he approaches it, where Palpatine's just greedy. This man's like, you know what? If I put this here and this here, it'll end up setting up this much better. And, it's funny. He's the only character, at least to me, and maybe y'all Legends nerds will tell me, but the reason why I broke out a very small bottle of one is because he got drunk thinking he was like literally drunk, not drunk on power. Truly, he got drunk the evening with Palpatine, and Palpatine struck him down and killed him. Force lightning to death. And there's a monologue at the end of the book that may be one of the greatest monologues ever, that Palpatine is resentful for what he made, what he was made to be. But I don't know, you get this character that obviously wanted Palpatine to be the next heir, and the rule of two dictates that that next person will inevitably kill you. So I don't know, Plagueis is so interesting, and like
yes,
I don't know, I've had a deep passion for him since summer of 2020. I was working a job and I listened to that whole audiobook in like a 3-day like sitting, and that's a 14-hour audiobook. And like I was like, I cannot get enough of what they're doing with this. And he literally, one person he finds, he literally lets them die and come back to life just to watch how and what his midichlorians do. That's right. And the beauty in that is
Tenebris's backup apprentice.
Yes, right. Yes, who comes and hunts Plagueis. Like, that's how cool this book is. But you now see it, and it's so cool. And I hope the Acolyte gets into this in some capacity. I think that's what they're building towards. But you get this like insane reveal in The Rise of Skywalker that it's because of Plagueis is why Palpatine's alive. It's the only real canon entry at this point. And obviously it's from a novel, but like essence transfer, that is what Plagueis essentially does, and that's what he learns about. That's what he's teaching Palpatine to do. And like, I don't know, it's
Bane began.
Yes, it was Bane almost trying to do it to Xana. Yeah,
it all comes together, man. And I think that's what's interesting about the tapestry we've woven of Sith.
He said the name.
I did.
Alden's on this episode.
There we go.
Like, we've all picked characters one way or another that have greatly affected the other.
That's right.
You know, you go as far and early back as Exar Kun, or you go to the end with Palpatine, or beyond with Crate and everything. Like, but every one has had influence over the other in their own unique way, in their own
That's
unique
right.
stories. I think that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
That we
See-
did that unintentionally.
And you can see that it's a lineage for me. Kamari Vosa, Count Dooku, Palpatine, Plagueis. Like there's something to that build where it's still believable. And not saying the Jedi y'all chose your legend ones aren't believable, but like Plagueis is one of those ones that we could get a miniseries for, but like if they recanonize that book, you wouldn't really have to change that much. You wouldn't have to change that much at all.
Not at
Which
all.
is really weird.
And
If
that's
I
what's
may with-
interesting
sorry.
about that.
Oh, go ahead.
If I may, with Plagueis, one of the things that I find so fascinating about him is the way that, like, he's like the company man of the Sith. Like, he gets it. He gets it. Like, bastard, horrible person, but he gets it. He is not. He is not unnecessarily cruel. He is not like again, like what he's doing is horrible and torturous to his subjects, where he's bringing people back to life and then killing them again and then back to life so he can like manipulate the midichlorians.
But he thinks it's for this higher like it's very Bane in that sense of like it's like it's a necessary evil
being
almost.
greater, you know. And like the thing that I love so much about him is the way that he mirrors Palpatine back to himself, especially in the end of his life. That, you know, part of why Palpatine was able to kill him so easily was because of the attempt on his life that left him with like the giant respirator, not unlike Vader, that when Palpatine was like, all right, nice knowing you, Higo, and just like, you know, electrocutes him, is that he shut his shit off by doing that, same way he'd kill Anakin later. But one of my favorite parts of that book is at the very beginning and the very end when Palpatine's like, I think I killed him.
Yep. That's not crazy.
I think he's dead.
I like to think that's where his need for contingency came from, is this idea of, I don't know if I've ever truly escaped my master.
Yeah.
I don't know if Plagueis is actually dead.
And that's one of the most interesting things to mess with right there, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I wanted Snoke to be the Plagueis so badly. Where I was like this would be the perfect, like, Plagueis just kind of kicking down the door like the Kool-Aid man going, ha, 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 I waited till you died, you dumb son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
I agree. And you know, it's funny. There was that one moment, and I don't know if it was intentional, and we can speculate on this all we want, but it was at the San Diego Comic-Con that they let fans go up and ask questions, and someone straight up asked Daisy Ridley, of all people, is Snoke Plagueis? And like, she looked at Lawrence Kasdan and JJ, and they were both like, no, you can't answer that. And I was like, oh my God, if they had done that route, you know,
Scotty, I will correct you briefly. Daisy Ridley looked over and under her breath went, "Is that the one that we were like?" She says,
"Oh, that was it."
Isn't that the?" And then JJ was like, "Oh no. Great book. Moving
Secret
on."
box. Secret box.
That's the thing. Like, there is a story for this character. You know, most creators that, like I said earlier, JJ was the one that was like, we were so compelled by that, what that could mean for the Rise of Skywalker. Like, and that's the first line that Palpatine says, you know. Jared, you can play quote it better than I can. You say it. Whenever
I missed what you said. What were you saying?
Whenever they show Sidious or Palpatine for the first time in the Rise of Skywalker, the dark side is a pathway to many things.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be lightning flash unnatural.
That was the most hammiest thing they could have done.
But it was great because it answered the question without having to answer the question.
In the first 5 minutes, we have it all.
Yep.
How? What?
The dead speak.
Listen.
Like, it's because of Plagueis. And honestly, if that movie had spent, and I'm not joking when I say this, maybe another line of dialogue, I learned it from my master, Plagueis. You know, like, that would have been
all it was missing.
That it's so funny because I love that movie, but that would have been one of those moments where, like, aha, you know, and everyone would have been like, let's look into what the hell that means. And you got
for
your
the
answer.
spoon-fed fans, it would have definitely helped.
Which is nice because
that is so far down on my pecking order for like things I would fix about Rise of Skywalker.
Sure.
Like, I don't like them using Palpatine as the villain, But like the way they bring him back, and again, maybe it's because I'm a Legends guy, but when people are like, "Oh, this doesn't make any sense," I'm like, no, his master was the granddaddy of midichlorian manipulation. The whole point was to figure out how to prevent death.
Right.
Like,
They literally
if we
did
made
this
it-
20 years ago, right?
Yeah. It's like that's been a thing. It's damn near impossible to clone Force sensitives. All of this makes sense. And another oh damn, I just lost it. Never mind. Keep going. I had a thought and then it.
But no, like I think that's the biggest thing for me, being that was my like most interesting thing. The thing I was most interested in. With legend storytelling, with Palpatine, I would not necessarily the whole Luke, I'm gonna dabble in the dark side stuff, but the clone emperor stuff I was very into, and I'd kind of wondered back with episode 7, is this going to be a direction we go, because I'd be very for it, and we didn't get it, so they kind of surprised me with it on the back end with the Rise of Skywalker.
right.
So I think I was so into it because I was so into it already. Right, like I was already looking for that to be the end game a little bit. So
I appreciate y'all let me talk about this character, because this is the one character that I think people don't give enough attention to, and will one day. And then unfortunately, us four will be the ones that we've been loving this character for the past 30 years. It's
this fight since I was 6 years old.
Literally, and like I don't know, you take a name drop in Star Wars just means so much. Like that whole business of Cato Nemoidia, that line means something now,
It's literally 2 different books. There are 2 different books that are about that business on Cato Nemoidia that doesn't count.
No.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like that's the thing. That's what Star Wars as well. That's what George established, obviously, with the you knew my father in the Clone Wars. Boom! Here's a whole series and a whole set of movies and a whole set of books. Yes, and like George writing that was not writing it, because it was the last Star Wars movie. He was writing it because he knows someone would fill those gaps later, and it's probably the best example of filling the gaps in and not being that sounds so bad, and not being terrible. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know. I feel like James Luceno truly couldn't have written a better novel. And I literally bought it, y'all. I'm not kidding. I'll show you. I bought it to have this conversation with y'all. I listened to the first hour and a half of it this week. I'm not kidding. And by the way, him being immune also is really sick, because we need more like really different looking Sith. Like if we got a Doug Sith or like a Nemoidian Sith, like just something. That'd be cool.
Like I mean, I lingered on it because Kakruk was on my favorite Jedi list. Like so many of my favorite Jedi are the weird aliens. Yes, and it's just because they're just instantly visual. Like it's one thing to be visually interesting in Star Wars; it's another when they actually give you a story. So when you get to be a visually interesting character with a story, it's a win-win. And so, but
heck yeah,
I think Plagueis, much like more Bane, is an eventuality. I really do. But then, yes, Jarod.
I just want to say, I remember what I was going to say earlier.
There we go.
Like the whole company man thing is that like, and the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. He thought Palpatine was his ride or die.
That's right.
Like he was, especially after getting stabbed in the back by Tenebris. Right? Because like what happens with Tenebris, like he wasn't even like super focused on killing his master until a giant rock fell on him, and he was like,
right,
okay,
all right, well that's taken care of. I guess I'm the Sith master now. And then goes off, but he was waxing poetic, not unlike Dooku does in the Revenge of the Sith novel.
That's right.
Where there's that level of like, we did it, we won. We can start to, the Sith can become like powerful and like an army again. There doesn't just have to be 2 of us anymore. Like Plagueis really thought he was riding to the end of the sunset with Palpatine.
God,
I think that's when if you're Palpatine, only because Palpatine plays with both of those characters, I think that's when they've fulfilled their purpose.
Yeah,
is when they start to see this other plan, this other future. That's when it's like, all right, nope, they are no longer useful. It's time for me to step in and take it back from them.
Yeah.
And like, I got one thing I want to add at the very end of all this, if you all don't mind. Not the whole conversation, but about to wrap Plagueis up. The best moment in that novel is him, and Jared's talked about this on my show a couple of times, is when he sees Anakin.
Yes.
And that shit, that is that is to me one of the greatest moments in all of Star Wars. He's like, I sense that. What do I sense? Like, I sense something I have never felt before. And God, it feels so familiar. And then he goes and looks off the balcony, seeing Palpatine greet Anakin and all them. And it's literally who he made through the Force. And it's like, God, it's like, that's like the most awesome moment to me ever.
And it's the freak out that comes with it too.
Yes.
Right.
Because like, and I love like and it's the line where it's so on the nose.
Yeah.
But whenever like Palpatine and Plagueis like have that moment where they just feel when they first like
yes,
quote unquote create Anakin.
We did it. Right.
When they go, okay, we just did something, but the Force did not like that.
Yep.
And one of them says like,
it.
I feel like the Force is going to strike back. They said the thing.
Eventually.
But the way that Plagueis for like years after that is like,
what was it?
Any day now. Any day now.
Yeah, what
I'm
could
gonna
it be?
step on this mine and I'm gonna find out. And then, like you said, like he sees it, he just has that like, oh my God,
That's
holy
him.
shit, oh
Yep.
my God. And it's like, and it's with a Jedi, damn it. Like,
Yes.
But
And
it ended up
what-
being
God.
exactly what they needed.
like this Qui-Gon Jinn guy's gonna be a problem.
Uh-huh.
Right.
You know, and it's like, oh, great, it's with Qui-Gon. Cool.
Right.
God, it's so
I knew I shouldn't have let you watch the kid.
Yeah.
good. So good. Yeah, thank you for that. I needed that moment to talk about that.
Absolutely. Everybody should go read Plagueis. Right.
It really is
Well-
and through one of the best Star Wars novels because it doesn't just tie up loose ends. It honestly adds to the sequel trilogy now, which is insane because it was written in
Right.
2012. Like, who would have
Absolutely.
ever thought? But that being said, thank you.
It's so
Yeah.
sad it
Talking
barely
about him.
made the cutoff. I think like,
God.
I think if James Luceno, like if I had my druthers, I'd just move the timeline in either direction.
Yep.
So that like they're like, well, my book's gonna come out while everything else would be legends, and they just go,
Yep.
all right, we can leave it in,
Right.
And then like retroactively, so much pre the prequel type
Yes.
stories,
Yeah.
like KOTOR, like the Tales of the Jedi, like the Bane trilogy, all retroactively become canon in their
Right.
entirety because of the way that Plagueis is like, well, you see, my apprentice is such and learned such and such and such, you know, like we were this close to that
No.
book, like just being this like little DLC pack that would have just the entire timeline.
I mean,
Let me see
and
what
that's
it
what's
was.
that's what's perfect about the book is it's such a culmination of the mini stories before that in one way or the other are mentioned and brought forward and again, and then looking forward to what's coming next. But I think that's also why it works so well to where it still largely can be canon is because it
Yes.
takes so much from what we call legends and references it enough that you know it happened, but not necessarily in fine detail.
Yeah.
While looking forward to things we do know has happened in fine
Mhm.
detail. It exists in a very interesting space.
And his name is the last George name that we really kind of get, like truly get.
yeah,
Plagueis, like he's a plague. Like I don't know, it works well.
Right.
The book came
Mad
out January
scientist named
10th,
Plagueis.
2012. So it missed the mark about 9 months.
yep.
It was right there. God.
One Anakin Skywalker short. So,
Uh-huh.
Yes. Exactly.
and now we've built up, and I
Ooh.
hope, first of all, God bless anyone still listening.
We've got the Bryans, and that's it.
If you've made it this far, first of all, congratulations because you are in for a whopping and fantastical first favorite Sith from
No one's gonna
no.
guess.
from Boop. It's definitely been worth your while. But yes,
I'm
So-
nervous.
My favorite Sith of all time, and you know what? I'm gonna be honest, it got me through the Clone Wars the first time watching it.
The friends we made along the way.
Exactly. Darth Maul from the Clone Wars is my favorite Sith of all time because you get the craziest mother effer on several legs. At first, I will listen. Spider Legs Maul is the most special boy of all time. And I love him, and he can do no wrong in my eyes, even though he has done quite a bit of wrong,
trash.
Oh, yeah. of
including
course.
possibly cannibalism. But, you know, who hasn't at this point?
Who
In this economy? Come on. Yeah, I was not expecting crazy Spider Legs Maul. and
One of
it
the best.
knocked me out of my freaking seat. And I was so bedazzled, not bedazzled,
Bedazzled.
bedeviled.
Good movie.
If you were expecting Spider Leg Mall, I want to know what you think the lottery numbers are. To
Right. If that was on
Yeah,
your
for
bingo
real.
card,
If you
Exactly.
had that specifically.
gift of prophecy right
Well,
there.
like the same thing happened when we watched Rebels. There was a lot that you kept me from.
Tried to, yeah.
Tried to.
Yeah.
Obviously, there were things that it's a several-year-old show, can't keep me for everything. But seeing Maul in a state of utter brokenness, just this is what happens when you are left to die and to stew
Mhm.
for
That's
how
right.
many years?
At that point,
13.
so
Or no,
it was
closer to
10
like 11,
years, so
yeah.
that would have been 12 years. 12 years after The Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. But yeah, that is what happens when hatred is the only thing that's keeping you alive. It will break you
Yeah.
down to your barest form and make you into a monster, only to be rescued later by your brother. Hey,
Yeah.
if there's a positive message we can have here, family will save you from a garbage pit. Okay, now.
And
Hey,
a snake guy.
Oh,
It
poor
gets
snake guy.
slaughtered.
Honorable mention, poor Savage Press, man.
don't get me
Yeah.
started on the first Zabrak to ever actually use his horns.
Nah,
Right.
Yep. That was awesome.
that's the
Well, no,
only
poor
good thing
What have we been
Adigalia.
doing?
did.
Poor
What have you been
Adigalia.
doing this entire time?
You know what, Boop? I gotta admire you for one thing in particular. You
Consistent?
chose a Sith that may be the most multi-charactered, though, and I mean it. Right? You got a Sith that has had different story elements always thrown at him. From, like you said, the broken one. The crime lord one. You've got the youthful one, the revengeful one, and then you've got the broken, like not the broken one, but the pure anger, the now living, the undead Maul. Like you've got so many good. That was such a good decision, and I know you. That was clever, but that was such a good decision.
Thank you, dear. Like I love the arcs that Maul goes through, specifically in the Clone Wars, from season 4, season 3,
Into season 4
to season 7.
Yeah,
He goes through a lot in that time. You get to see brokenness. You get to see pure rage that is, tamped down into the most beautiful, cool exterior. Like he is a Bond villain.
Yeah,
on
he
the
is.
Mandalore arc. That is
Mm.
peak villain, in my opinion. And you get these, these snippy little one-liners here and there, but it's mostly just like this cool, deep rage under the surface. He is a postal worker ready to snap at any moment. I will forever say that.
He's a
And
Maul man.
exactly. He goes
Yeah.
from a monster. Stop stealing my jokes. Stop it. He goes from a monster to a reckoning in that arc. Like this is what happens when you cross me.
Mhm.
Well, to what we see, to use an illustration that was, I forget, I don't know if it was Star Wars Insider or whatnot, but they mentioned him like, when he's introduced in the first film, he's like a mace. He's like some blunt,
Yeah.
heavy, ballistic weapon, right?
He is a lion pacing in a cage.
And
Uh-huh.
what we see through the Clone Wars up until he ends is so much of that weapon getting chiseled away until all that's left is a stump and knife.
That's right.
That's all he is when he finally meets Kenobi again, under the twin suns, or I guess the twin moons. But
I think this is one moon.
one of the interesting parallels, kind of something to throw to Legends peoples, that I've seen actually is this analogy for, because you mentioned, and we talk about often how we are still here. Yes, Milky.
Not yet. I haven't had enough.
I am.
You mentioned he's alive on spite, right?
Exactly.
So one of the
Jerry
interesting
just
things-
finally added me back on Snapchat. Now I'm full of spite.
There you go.
There you go.
One of the interesting parallels I've seen
been
drawn
months.
is with the Sith triumvirate. So with that, you have Treya, Sion, and Nihilus, right? And Sion is the Lord of Pain, and kind of equating this sort of living deadness from Maul to Sion, right?
Absolutely.
You have the Lord of Betrayal, which is drawn the parallel of Anakin to Traya. And then you have the Lord of Hunger, this insatiable lust for power that you can draw from Sidious to Nihilus. And I just think
Mhm.
that that's such an interesting, like, and
I knew some of those words.
somebody can obviously pick apart and be like, well, that's not a one to, like, I get it, but
Whatever.
I like this sort of
No, I know. You're right.
this sort of reincarnation sort of thing of, the sins repeating generationally with the
Mhm.
Sith that kind of happens from that, because I like this idea that it's just these people and these choices leading them to just keep the cycle going of evil and
Mhm.
everything. But it's also because I like those characters. The Sith
Yeah.
Groundbreak is one of the coolest. That's another honorable mention out there as well.
Yeah.
Darth Nihilus was this close to my list.
I thought you were saying that your honorable mention was the entirety of the Sith Triumvirate.
I mean, technically, it's sort of that Trinity thing where it's like they're all
Yeah.
co-equal in power and
Oh my
glory,
gosh,
right?
let's
Like,
not get into theology, please.
Except for when they jumped.
I mean,
Traya,
that's what they
but-
were going for. That's what they were
I
going for.
know. I know. Okay.
The unholy Trinity.
Star Wars is a Jesus story. I know.
But how cool is it that Maul even had the chance to be able to be the ruler of Mandalore? Like
Absolutely.
that was that. I heard this dude.
That's the craziest twist is like, and that's the thing, right? So, and like, not to keep adding to the fire of this conversation that's gone on so long already, but he had at one point everything he wanted.
Exactly.
Everything
but-
he set out when he was
but-
originally taken in to this Sith fold, he's gotten. He had
Exactly.
power,
Yep.
he had influence, he had
Oh,
leadership,
the-
he had a grip on the galaxy for a time.
Yes.
All of that stuff, and he still gave it up just to get Kenobi. Like,
Exactly.
come
Because
on, dude.
revenge does wonders for the will to live.
Mm-hmm.
And that is
Nice.
all of Maul in
Well,
one line.
But that's the difference, right? And that's why Kenobi and Maul, and I know you have your Ahsoka and Maul dyad thing, but like
Ahsoka and
the
Maul are
best.
dyad. I will
The
preach that.
best.
where Kenobi and Maul
I
are
like
so
that.
linked is
Mhm.
that they both have that desire to keep going for revenge's sake,
Yeah.
but they go about it different ways. Like Maul wants to weaponize his revenge, where like for Kenobi it becomes, and I think we're seeing that journey with the show now. It becomes this flip of like, no, my revenge is persisting, continuing, keeping the
Exactly.
light alive.
That's the point of the line. Look what I've risen above.
Exactly. And so that's what like this stuff is so like, and that's what's so great about like, although we're talking about dark characters and all this other stuff from this weird silly space opera,
Learn from
we
them. For
yeah, we
Pete's sake.
still get so many interesting
Yeah.
and inspirational even stories.
I
It's
mean,
really
I
interesting.
agree.
I talk all the time about Maul, obviously, because he is my favorite character, because he is a character that I keep in mind when I have to deal with my own anger issues. Like, I do not want to end up like Darth Maul. I do not want to end up in the arms of my enemy, dying, metaphorically or
I mean, if it's
physically.
Kenobi, what a way to go!
I
though.
know, right? Looking into those big, beautiful eyes. I mean,
I
God.
think that one of my favorite like what ifs to ponder and with Maul is you're not going to hear me do this very often.
Here we go.
To quote The Dark Knight with the whole like, I'm like a dog chasing a car. I don't know what I'd do if I actually got it. Like, what the hell was
Mhm.
Maul gonna do
That's true.
if Ahsoka took his hand and we're like, okay, we're gonna go whack Darth Sidious? One of the things, it's really subtle and it's really tiny, and it's this in the same way of the way that Dooku, even in the end, was like, I'm gonna die before I give it up. Maul never said it's the Chancellor.
mhm.
He didn't sell them out. And I think on some level, Maul was like, I'm not going to tell you who until you agree
Yeah.
to
Right.
do this. Like, for
Right.
real. And, like, there was a part of him that was like, I'm not going to let a Jedi do it.
Mhm.
Right, it's got to be me.
It's
Exactly.
got to be me. And
He's
there's
the one that
selfishness
broke
there.
me.
And we're obviously past the point of having time to unpack this, but Boop, there's a very interesting dynamic happening here where I want to say disagree with your interpretation because you're the Maul person. You get Maul better than most. I think it's interesting that you say that Maul is at his like broken man stage in Rebels when I see Maul circa the Clone Wars, or as the broken, shattered man who's just glomming on everything he can get his hands on to make himself whole. And by the time of Rebels, I more see him like mostly because he drops the Darth title then.
Yeah.
Remember, like from, and again, that's just me. I don't say like, you're wrong. It's
I get
interesting interpretations of the character that, like, for me, when he's like, just Maul, no longer Darth, where it's that very like, I'm doing my own thing, and honestly, I'm just kind of freestyling at this point. I've lost my criminal empire for the 4th time, and he doesn't like become the broken lunatic again until he's like, oh, Obi-Wan's alive.
Right.
Well, there's something, It's like he's so compelling and fascinating, and thank you for centering him here, because I do think he is central to everything we've talked about.
Sure.
In like the pathology of Darth Maul.
He was just the casted Sith. Like, he got casted away. Like, he wasn't even worth it. Like, to other people, he was like, nah, you're not worth my time. He may embody the Sith the most in that capacity of, like, he deserves
Depending on who
that
you
recognition.
ask, no one even really considered him a Sith.
That's right. That's right.
True.
And it's funny, like, I think a lot of us, one of my favorite moments, and it might be the same for y'all, was in a recent addition to Clone Wars with season 7, whenever he gets captured. And what does he scream? Literally made me tear up. You don't know what is it? What is the exact phrasing? It's like, you don't know.
Let me die. You don't know what's coming. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Whoa. And you're like, this man really. Oh, look, that I know Nick just brought it up right there, right? See, what are you doing here? I was thinking it me literally. It's
Even
so
still.
good. But like that line where he screams and panics, like, holy cow, like he doesn't want to get killed either. He's just like the Jedi.
Yep.
Yes. God, it's just so good. It's such a profound character, man. Who would have ever thought seeing him at 99 and then having him get killed 99, and then now we look back at it, 24 years later, and just like, he's perfect. He's perfect.
Thank you. That's what I've been saying.
That's right.
Hey, I think we have all come up with very interesting and powerful lists of the greatest Sith, at least to us. There was a lot of quipping and memes happening in the chat, so no actual dialogue on their favorites. But in closing, we would invite you, find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or come back to this if you're watching it on YouTube. Let us know your favorite Sith. Obviously, it can be an interesting conversation, one worth 2.5 hours, apparently.
That's right.
Not a new Nerdherder record, but close.
No, I think our first.
This is just average Nerd Academy time. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Hey, well, obviously, it's bearable and listenable because of our lovely guests, to whom we say a hearty thank you yet again to joining us for this. At the end of the day, Nerdherder is about us just getting to selfishly, we do bend to the dark side in that aspect. We selfishly just have fun conversations with our friends, and some weirdos on the internet seem to like listening to that. So, what are we to deny the people?
Exactly.
So if you liked it, make sure that you let us know by liking it, rating it, or sharing it. That always does a lot of good to grow the conversation, grow the cult that is Nerdherder.
That's right.
I don't know if we've established the hierarchy in theology yet, but we've established we do know Scotty is God. GAWD. We have Boop Jesus.
Boop Satan.
Boop Satan. I guess Jarod, you can be Jesus.
Jarod, say
one
Michael.
could say Boopsifer.
Boopsifer. Oh gosh.
Change the handle.
There we go. Yes,
that's right.
We love our weird space friends. And shout out to all those who were
she goes for the phone for this.
Yes.
Oh, we were lucky to be here. Look, I'm not gonna lie, Nerdherder, I've listened to y'all a handful of times, and obviously I know Boop real well just from interactions and being a part of the Bombad fam and everything. But like, to be on it means a lot. And I know we've talked about doing episodes about not Lord of the Rings, Legend of Zelda. We've talked about doing episodes in different fandoms, which we still need to, actually follow through with. But that being said, right, I feel very lucky to be on here. And I love the welcomeness that I felt. And I don't know, I really admire y'all. Y'all are great people, and you're good friends of mine. And I don't know, it's just we're so lucky to have, like Nick said, weird space friends in this capacity. We really are, in like every way.
Absolutely.
And Jarod
again, y'all
lost to
moved
me in
it-
trivia.
You guys were so sweet as to move the day so I could even be on to begin with, and that
Yes.
again very much made me very
Oh,
happy.
absolutely. And well worth the change to be able to have this lovely conversation, and we would do it again in a heartbeat if it means getting to hang out with these awesome people. So thank you again. We can't say much more, but yes, please. Their handles are in the description, but be sure to check out Jarod over on Twitter as well as Nerd Academy Podcast, and also Scotty for his ridiculous cryptid memes and just off the handle,
Sometimes he gets possessed.
non-contextual
Legitimately.
tweets. But if you want more of his brainy passion, you can also check out Bombadcast.
That's right.
And just lovely people to have in your ears and eyes.
Mhm.
However you digest their content, it is well worth it.
As much as I hate him, I do love having Scotty in me.
He's a good lord. Also, Jarod, I don't want to show you up, but I thought of a much better one. Beelzebub.
Beelzebub. Ooh, that is a good one.
I
That's a
take
good one.
honor. I take honor in like having the joke that got upgraded. I take
Exactly.
honor in like
Yep.
What
Yep.
inspired what thing? I agree.
You set it up. You set it up. Well, as always, we will be back next week. We are taking a week to chat about other things we enjoy, bringing back some familiar faces to talk about Masters of the Universe, I believe.
There we go.
Masters of the Universe.
Yes,
Indeed.
Revelation
Yes.
specifically. It's been a year, and we recently got the announcement that it is getting a sequel, and so we are very excited about
Get
that.
ready for a lot of Skeletor impressions.
Yes.
Yes.
Again, we love our bad boys, and so, but we'll be back in 2 weeks to talk more Star Wars as we wrap up and review Kenobi with a character study that I am excited for more than ever now, surprisingly. So, but until then, from us, including Piglet at Nerdherder and the boys with us, we wish you a hearty stay scruffy, and we will see you all next time.
Stay Bombad.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You know, this is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee.